Chapter 3258. In a short period of time, 3 Eighth Realm Supermasters were severely injured together, and all this happened too fast. It didn't even give anyone time to think. Or perhaps before this, perhaps no one thought that Yi Shiwen, who was also in the 8th realm, could severely injure other 8th realm supermasters with a crushing advantage. The 3 of them had been seriously injured in a short period of time. In fact, it had only been a few moves from the beginning to the end. Even a fool could see that Yi Shiwen's strength was almost overwhelming. He was completely above the 3 of them. Damn, has he already stepped into the 9th realm? Not far away, the pale face of the Ghost Emperor in red, who finally reassembled her body with great difficulty, showed a somewhat horrified look. Yi Shiwen's performance just now almost made her think that she encountered a 9th realm supermaster. If Yi Shiwen really stepped into the 9th realm, then with his amazing performance all along, this operation might really lose more than gain. She might also face Yi Shiwen's revenge in the future. The dark behemoth and the strong old man who were beaten to the point of vomiting blood actually had such a guess. After all, Yi Shiwen's performance was too amazing. No, he hasn't stepped into the 9th realm. I won't mistake that aura. Emperor Tian Yi immediately reacted. Yi Shiwen's performance didn't look like he had broken through to the 9th realm, but according to his combat power, even if he hadn't stepped into the 9th realm, he should actually be one step into the 9th realm. It must be said that although Emperor Tian Yi was beaten up by Yi Shiwen previously, he still had some basic insight because he was an existence that had truly stepped into the 9th realm. Therefore, Yi Shiwen couldn't hide the fact that he hadn't stepped into the 9th realm after all. But even so, he was still shocked by Yi Shiwen's strength. Even if he was in Yi Shiwen's position, he probably couldn't injure the 3 so easily. Moreover, what made him most afraid was that Yi Shiwen hadn't used the palm technique that made him suffer a big loss previously. In his opinion, Yi Shiwen hadn't used his full strength yet. He also had his own judgment that Yi Shiwen definitely couldn't keep using that set of palm technique. He must pay some price, but he didn't know what the price was. But what he knew was that it was definitely not small. Otherwise, Yi Shiwen wouldn't have used it long ago. With the strength of these 3, they probably wouldn't have lasted until now. What was he waiting for? Emperor Tian Yi's eyeballs kept turning. He was thinking of thousands of things, but his eyes were fixed on Yi Shiwen. He wanted to find a flaw to attack. In the battlefield, Yi Shiwen didn't stop after severely injuring 3 people in the blink of an eye. The demon wings behind him suddenly spread open, and he rushed to the front of the Ghost Emperor in red. The red-clothed Ghost Emperor had been cleaved into 2 halves by Yi Shiwen's sword earlier. He had just reassembled himself. His combat power was incomparable to his peak state. He had suffered a big loss when he had fought with Yi Shiwen earlier. He had blocked all his sources of essence, and had suffered heavy injuries in an instant. This time, Yi Shiwen rushed over again. It was almost exactly the same as before. The sky was sealed, and everything seemed to be covered. At this moment, Yi Shiwen's hands tore the sky full of golden light, and he directly rushed to the chest of the red-clothed Ghost Emperor. He wanted to tear her into 2 halves again. The red-clothed Ghost Emperor was shocked and angry. She didn't expect Yi Shiwen to kill again in such a short time. She immediately screamed, and countless resentful ghosts rushed out from her body. In an instant they had formed a mighty tide, and they rushed toward Yi Shiwen. Yi Shiwen sneered. Countless fire phoenixes whizzed out of his body, forming a huge sea of fire. It took shape majestically, and suddenly burned in the direction of the red-clothed Ghost Emperor. This was Nanmingli fire. Yi Shiwen had cultivated it to the origin. Even if the Phoenix ancestor was reborn in the past, it would only be at this level. Ah! Ah! A sharp scream came. Those resentful ghosts, malicious ghosts, and wronged ghosts couldn't resist the burning of the fire phoenixes at all. In just an instant they were burned to nothing. They couldn't even resist a little. They had met their nemesis. Although the red-clothed Ghost Emperor had already gotten rid of the characteristics and weaknesses of the ghost path, as long as the world was still divided into yin and yang, it was naturally difficult to escape the principle of mutual promotion and restraint. Yi Shiwen's speed was even faster. He almost followed the flame and rushed all the way to the front of the red-clothed Ghost Emperor. Rip! With a loud sound of silk tearing, the red-clothed Ghost Emperor screamed and was torn into two halves. Before her body could recover, she was already surrounded by the Nanmingli fire and burned fiercely. She struggled desperately, trying to escape, but it was useless. Yi Shiwen made a big move, grabbed her, and put her on the Nanmingli fire to roast. The ghost energy on the red-clothed Ghost Emperor's body was quickly burned, and she began to scream. Her whole body was emitting green smoke. That was the origin of the ghost energy on her body, and at the same time it was also her foundation. Now, it was evaporated by Yi Shiwen's Nanmingli fire. Ah, the mournful ghost howl of the red-clothed Ghost Emperor spread throughout the world. It made people shudder. It was as if they had fallen into the kingdom of death. The dark ominous beast and the sturdy old man's complexion turned pale. Yi Shiwen's fighting style was simply too cruel. He wanted to burn the red-clothed Ghost Emperor alive. Moreover, the red-clothed Ghost Emperor was different from them. She didn't have a physical body. She was just a spiritual body condensed by great magic power. Usually, it didn't seem to be much, but now it was obvious that she was at a disadvantage. As long as her physical body was burned to ashes, her spirit would naturally be annihilated, because her physical body was where her spirit was located. Damn it, I can't let him succeed. The strong old man seemed to realize something. Yi Shiwen was planning to defeat them one by one. He must not let him do so. However, as soon as he moved, the injury on his chest was affected, and he spurted out a mouthful of old blood. His chest was pierced by Yi Shiwen's fist just now, and his entire body was almost penetrated. Such an injury could not be said to be light. The fist intent was still raging on his body, not giving him time to recover. The key was that the red-clothed Ghost Emperor was a little too weak. She couldn't even resist one move. Or could it be that Yi Shiwen was too strong? Emperor Tianyi, why aren't you making a move? The strong old man said angrily. He suddenly had a feeling of a fox mourning for the death of a rabbit. For the first time, he had a feeling that mortals would suffer in a fight between immortals. They were both in the 8th realm, and he had even stepped into the peak of the 8th realm. However, compared to Yi Shiwen, the gap was really too big. Emperor Tianyi's words were slow, and he made a move without any warning. In his hand, the gold-plated phoenix wing pendant appeared, and it suddenly drew a shocking arc in the sky. Behind him, a pair of wings suddenly flickered, and his figure instantly rushed in front of Yi Shiwen. Fast, fast, fast. Like a bolt of lightning, Emperor Skywing had already charged towards them. He was simply too fast, and he was simply too powerful. He was a true 9th realm existence. Compared to the muscular old man who was at the peak of the 8th realm, he was clearly not just 1 or 2 levels stronger. Yi Shiwen only felt a burst of cold air pouncing on him from behind. The phoenix wing gold-plated dang had already appeared behind him and was pointing straight at his heart. Do you think I will not have any defense at all? Yi Shiwen sneered, and his big hand suddenly turned over. The Ghost Emperor in red, who was on the verge of death, was directly grabbed by him, and then collided with the gold-plated phoenix wing pendant. Ah! The Ghost Emperor in red, who was already on the verge of death, was hit by the gold-plated phoenix wing pendant on the spot. Her physical body that was as solid as a rock finally couldn't be controlled, and it collapsed directly. The spiritual body that she condensed could not resist at all, and it turned into nothingness on the spot. It turned into ashes directly, leaving only an inner world that Yi Shiwen grabbed. Yi Shiwen opened it and took a look. As an emperor of the 8th realm, the Ghost Emperor in red's inner world indeed had a lot of good things. There were many good things that were rarely seen on normal days. After all, the 8th realm was already the ultimate master after the 9th realm. Moreover, the ghost Tao that the red-clothed ghost emperor had practiced on a daily basis, as well as many ancient books and records that he had left behind. These books and records were also very useful to Yi Shiwen. That was because the death law was one of the 3,000 martial arts that he had practiced. The red-clothed ghost emperor's path of cultivation was also very important to the 4 cardinal laws that he had practiced. However, for Yi Shiwen, the most useful thing at present was the 10 level 2 dragon veins in her inner world. Even Yi Shiwen was tempted by such wealth. Damn it! Emperor Tian Yi was furious to the extreme. He was actually used by Yi Shiwen as a tool. Although he had reacted very quickly, he still couldn't make it in time. The ghost emperor in red still died on his gold-plated phoenix wing pendant. Die! Emperor Tian Yi was furious. The gold-plated phoenix wing pendant in his hand slashed at Yi Shiwen at a faster speed. Everyone could clearly see a trace wherever it passed. Within this trace, everything was dead. Nothing could exist in it at all, whether it was life, spirit, or even laws. All of them were annihilated. Yi Shiwen's hand shook, and the martial emperor's seal appeared in his hand. He collided with the gold-plated phoenix wing pendant. Dang! There was a huge roar, and a burst of sparks splashed. This burst of sparks actually burned the laws of heaven and earth, the sun, the moon, the stars, and everything. Yi Shiwen's body seemed to be unable to resist, and his body flew out. Before Emperor Tian Yi had time to be complacent, he saw Yi Shiwen directly pouncing in the direction of the dark beast with the recoil force. He did it on purpose. Chapter 3259. At this moment, even if Emperor Tian Yi was a fool, he wouldn't know that this was Yi Shiwen's scheme. Yi Shiwen made use of his attack to create an unguarded opportunity. No matter how cunning the dark ferocious beast was, it wouldn't expect that Yi Shiwen would actually attack it while fighting with Emperor Tian Yi. Yi Shiwen obviously made use of this mentality. No one expected that he would dare to attack so brutally. That dark ominous beast was completely dumbfounded at this time. Yi Shiwen had already arrived in front of it by the time it reacted. I'll fight with you! At this time, the dark beast had yet to recover from the serious injuries caused by Yi Shiwen. However, it did not have time to consider these at this time. Every scale on its body was blooming with dark light. Every scale was a dark kingdom. All kinds of dark kingdoms were blooming with unimaginable, amazing power. At this time, these dark kingdoms collapsed in an instant, and the amazing energy formed from the collapse also gathered together. At this moment, the dark beast destroyed these holy kingdoms that it had cultivated for many years. It was a scene of doomsday everywhere. It was so that he could accumulate enough power in a short period of time. He had to survive this move. As long as he survived this move, everything would be fine. He knew that he only had one chance to launch a sneak attack like this. Emperor Skywing would definitely not give him a second chance. An unparalleled dark power formed in front of the dark beast, and then it was swallowed by it. The dark beast suddenly opened its mouth, and a terrifying power formed in it. It turned into an endless dark light beam, and the law was entangled on it. It was dazzling, and it directly rushed towards Yi Shiwen. Die! The dark beast was furious to the extreme. It could not care so much, nor could it care about the so-called long-term development in the future. It had to survive this ordeal. This dark law contained a terrifying power. Even the experts of the 9th realm had to avoid it temporarily. It was too strong. It contained almost half of the dark beast's cultivation in it. However, in the face of such a terrifying attack, Yi Shiwen did not have the slightest change in his expression. He stepped on the heaven and earth, grasped the 8 extremes, and slapped out directly. This slap directly followed the trajectory of the law of heaven and earth. With an unimaginable shocking example, it pressed directly towards the dark light beam. Universe Creation Palm. This palm contained everything, including all creation. It seemed to annihilate everything in an instant. The dark light beam was annihilated the moment it came into contact with the palm of universe creation. It disappeared without a trace. The originally terrifying power seemed to be nothing in the face of this palm. It couldn't withstand it at all. This palm fell with the momentum of the sky and the earth. It crushed the dark light beam bit by bit, and then it fell on the dark beast. Puff! The dark, ominous beast spurted out a mouthful of old blood, and its entire body was smashed to pieces in midair. The might of this palm was too terrifying. Yi Shiwen had kicked the dark, ominous beast earlier, and the might of that kick had already been terrifying. However, it was nothing compared to the might of this Fortune Universe palm. This dark, ominous beast only had enough time to let out a blood-curdling screech. Then, the soul hidden in its body was forced out by this palm strike. It didn't have enough time to regroup and escape. Then, an earth-shattering sea of fire burst out from Yi Shiwen's body. A series of cries rang out. Then, everyone only saw the soul of the dark, ferocious beast being completely reduced to nothing. This, Emperor Skywing, didn't need to be mentioned. Although he knew about the existence of the Cosmic Creation Palm long ago, when the Cosmic Creation Palm had landed on him, aside from that one sneak attack, he had actually been able to just barely resist it. Thus, he hadn't thought much of it. But when this palm fell on the dark beast, it could really see how ferocious it was. Even an emperor of the 9th realm wouldn't dare to think of killing a super-existence of the 8th realm with a single palm strike. Only heavenly masters and above could achieve this. However, Yi Shiwen had almost achieved this by relying on the Universe Creation Palm. He was even more afraid of the Universe Creation Palm, and at the same time, he was even more greedy. He must get this set of palm technique. And not far away, the strong old man only felt a chill all over his body. A chill suddenly jumped up from the soles of his feet, and went straight to the top of his head. Almost his whole body was frozen, or it should be said that he was scared. This is simply a joke. He only felt that Yi Shiwen was terrifying, but he never thought that Yi Shiwen had the ability to kill him in seconds. He actually still has such a move. At this time, he finally understood why Yi Shiwen could seriously injure Emperor Tian previously. The so-called sneak attack was just an excuse. The real terrifying trump card should be this set of palm technique. When he looked at Monarch Skywing again, although he was shocked and angry, he clearly knew about it. He couldn't help but grit his teeth in hatred. Clearly, Monarch Skywing knew about it long ago, but he didn't tell him. It was clear that he wanted to screw them over. However, if they knew that Yi Shiwen still had such a terrifying move and strength, they would not have agreed to come here at all. They were not stupid to come here to die. As for Alchemy Emperor in the distance, he felt that his worldview was collapsing. Since he knew Yi Shiwen, he only felt that his worldview was collapsing. What a joke! Yi Shiwen actually had the strength to kill the 8th realm in seconds. No wonder he dared to look down on the heaven-devouring demon tribe. With such strength, if the heaven-devouring demon king was not going to break through to the heavenly master realm, there was really nothing to be afraid of. Even the heaven-devouring demon king in the 9th realm might not be able to cause any threat to him. For the first time, he was convinced from the bottom of his heart. Some people were indeed born to be invincible. And suddenly, he realized that Emperor Tian Yi's gaze was fixed on him. However, he immediately realized that he had already run very far away. Just now, he had already received Yi Shiwen's words to run as far away as possible. Otherwise, if he stayed here, he would inevitably be restrained by Yi Shiwen in the end. Emperor Tian Yi originally wanted to find trouble with Alchemy Emperor and force Yi Shiwen back. Who knew that Alchemy Emperor would run away quickly? While everyone was immersed in the shock of Yi Shiwen's strength, he quietly ran away. Immediately, he gritted his teeth in hatred. Originally, he wanted to use the same method to deal with Yi Shiwen. Who knew that Yi Shiwen would clearly not be fooled? At this time, Yi Shiwen was not in a hurry to launch another attack. Instead, he took inventory. There were many good things in the dark, ferocious beast's inner world. Before it had the chance to explode, Yi Shiwen had already collected them. Apart from some heavenly treasures, martial arts manuals, and the like, what could be used directly were the 8 level 2 dragon veins. It was slightly inferior to the Ghost Emperor in red, but it was still a good harvest. It was worth it to directly consume half of his level 2 dragon veins. If he did not burn the level 2 dragon veins crazily, the effect would not be so shocking, let alone an instant kill. After taking inventory of the harvest, Yi Shiwen grinned. When he looked at the strong old man and Emperor Tianyi, they were no longer strong enemies. Instead, they were moving treasuries that could walk. Especially Emperor Tianyi. The Ghost Emperor in red and the dark ferocious beast in the 8th realm already had a lot of wealth. How much wealth was in Emperor Tianyi's inner world? Yi Shiwen was tempted just thinking about it. Emperor Tianyi also noticed Yi Shiwen's eyes, and he almost immediately read Yi Shiwen's thoughts. He couldn't help but be shocked and angry. Yi Shiwen did not take him seriously at all. On the contrary, Yi Shiwen treated him as a moving treasure house. Yi Shiwen had gone too far. The strong old man had goosebumps all over when he saw Yi Shiwen's gaze. He did not hesitate to burn his origin power to start healing. Then, he directly retreated to the side and was fully on guard. He looked as if he was not going to fight. Yi Shiwen's astonishing strength had thoroughly made him understand the disparity between him and Yi Shiwen. The fight between these two was like a fight between immortals. Mortals would suffer a calamity. So, he absolutely couldn't get involved. Although he only felt extremely sullen, he did not even have the courage to fight in the face of an expert of the same realm. If this spread out, his reputation would probably be ruined. Yi Shiwen, don't even think about succeeding today. This time, I won't be careless again. I won't give you any chance. Emperor Tianyi's expression became colder. He had already thought it through. Although universe creation palm was terrifying, it must have a limit. He had to pay a price. Moreover, as long as he was careful, even universe creation palm could not do anything to him. He was not the dark ferocious beast in the 8th realm. Ha ha, Emperor Tianyi, I let you escape last time. This time, I will finish it. You have no chance to escape here. If you have the ability, why don't you escape into divine capital of fortune again? Yi Shiwen said coldly. He did not give him any face and directly exposed his scars. Emperor Tianyi did not speak anymore, but the aura of his whole body was constantly rising. The gold-plated phoenix wing pendant in his hand was shining with amazing light. There was a series of cries, as if a divine bird was about to leap into the sky. And Yi Shiwen's expression also became colder. In his body, the remaining part of the mysterious creation pill had already turned into a terrifying medicinal power that completely dispersed into his limbs and bones. It drove the martial power of his whole body to rise, and he directly charged into the 9th realm on the battlefield. At the same time, there were also 10 level 2 dragon veins in the mysterious space that constantly burned and rushed into it. Countless laws and information of the 9th realm surged into his mind. On the surface of his body, the terrifying aura was also constantly rising, facing Emperor Tianyi from a distance. Chapter 3260. Yi Shiwen had originally intended to push his strength to the 9th realm slowly, because he had already made all the preparations. All of this was simply a matter of course. For the sake of entering the 9th realm, Shao Chen had been preparing for many years. He had expended a lot of resources and wealth. If the other 9th realm sovereign emperors knew about this, they would definitely vomit blood. No one would use wealth to bully others. Yi Shiwen was like this. He was rich and willful. It was because of this investment that he could improve his cultivation in a short period of time. All of this should have been reasonable, but now, because of Emperor Tianyi, Yi Shiwen decided to break through in advance. To break through in advance, he naturally needed to consume more resources. These 10 level 2 dragon veins were proof, but he had no other choice. The battle with Emperor Tianyi made him truly realize the strength of the 9th realm. Just fighting against Emperor Tianyi required him to make many calculations. In the future, when he ambushed Yi Huang, he might be killed. This was something he absolutely could not accept. Resources and wealth could only be used here to make the best use of them. Fortunately, after killing the Ghost Emperor in Red and the Dark Beast, there were still a lot of spoils, so he did not suffer a loss. Emperor Tianyi's face became more and more unsightly. He said coldly, "You actually dare to break through while fighting with me. You really don't want your life." "Why not?" Yi Shiwen said with a sneer. The possibility of others breaking through in the middle of the battle was higher because to break through, one had to multitask. Multitasking when one was at a disadvantage, wasn't it courting death? But he had the mysterious space, which could ensure that he could fight with all his might. He didn't have to consider the problem of multitasking. As long as he was willing to pay the price, there was nothing he couldn't do. "Well, since you don't want your life, then I will fulfill your wish." Emperor Tianyi's heart was filled with anger. He never thought that one day he would be filled with anger when fighting with an 8th realm emperor. That was the feeling of being despised. Swish! Emperor Tianyi instantly rushed to the front of Yi Shiwen. That was extremely fast. He didn't give Yi Shiwen a chance to react at all. Fast, fast, fast. Surpassing time and space, the wings on his back flickered with an inexplicable light, with the light of the law of time flickering within. Clearly, he had already deduced the law of speed to the extent that he could touch the law of time. Such speed could be said to be extremely fast. Yi Shiwen certainly wouldn't think that he was the only one who could touch the time law from the speed law. Although such people were undoubtedly rare, Emperor Tianyi was indeed the best in this aspect. However, Yi Shiwen was even more confident. This was because he was in reverse mode. Compared to Emperor Tianyi, who had used the speed law to rise to the time law, he had only touched the edge. He had first grasped the time law, then reversed it and used it on the speed of his movement technique. This mode ensured that his grasp of the time law was far better than that of ordinary people. If they were in the same realm, he was confident that he could beat Emperor Tianyi in this domain. But even so, it was no longer possible for Emperor Skywing to ambush him. He was no longer the same as before. Now, he was not only at the peak of the 8th realm, but also 1 foot into the 9th realm. In fact, even Emperor Skywing's movements could be analyzed by the mysterious space and used as fuel for his growth. Although Yi Shiwen knew that his mastery of the law of time was above that of Emperor Tianyi, it was impossible for him to master it completely. Otherwise, he would be able to beat the entire world just by relying on his comprehension of the law of time. Stones from other mountains can be used to improve jade. Yi Shiwen's eyes suddenly opened and turned into double pupils. He could see Emperor Tianyi's actions in full view. He just roared, "Emperor Tianyi, do you think that I haven't made any progress after such a long time? Today is destined to be the day that I will achieve my greatness, and you will be the stepping stone on my path forward." The gold-plated phoenix wing pendant swept across, and the world split open. However, when it swept in front of Yi Shiwen, it seemed to be in slow motion. It directly swept into Yi Shiwen's time domain, and was slowed down by Yi Shiwen's time power. However, this time domain only existed for a very short time. It was swept away by the absolute tyrannical strength of the gold-plated phoenix wing pendant. This was Emperor Tianyi's greatest reliance. His strength was far superior to Yi Shiwen, so he could naturally rely on his tyrannical strength to defeat Yi Shiwen. There was no need for any fancy and changes at all because his strength was sufficient. However, such a stagnation was enough for Yi Shiwen to react. Whoosh! Yi Shiwen's figure suddenly retreated thousands of miles away, avoiding the sweeping range of the gold-plated phoenix wing pendant. Coldness flashed in Emperor Tian Yi's eyes. This was not the first time he had seen the power of the time robe. However, it was obvious that the power of the time robe that Yi Shiwen was able to display was far greater than before. However, he only revealed a slight coldness, and the pair of wings behind him flashed. When his figure appeared again, he was already in front of Yi Shiwen. The gold-plated phoenix wing pendant seemed to have teleported and continued to slash down. Emperor Tian Yi was almost like a bone maggot. He swept over like a shadow and stuck close to Yi Shiwen. He did not give Yi Shiwen a chance to escape at all. However, Yi Shiwen did not retreat again at this time. Instead, he faced it head-on. The Avicii sword in his hand slashed out a mighty sword torrent. Clang! The Avicii sword and the gold-plated phoenix wing pendant finally collided in the sky. The light of the law erupted like the genesis of the world. It turned into a rainbow and collapsed in the sky. However, such a collision only happened for a moment and stopped because both sides disappeared at once. When both sides reappeared, they were already thousands of miles away. Boom! Both sides collided again, setting off a terrifying frenzy. Then, they disappeared again and reappeared again. The speed of the battle was simply too fast. The Pill Emperors at the scene could no longer capture the silhouettes of both sides. Even if they poured all their power into their eyes and opened their heavenly eyes, it was still very difficult to see. They could only vaguely capture some silhouettes. Only when both sides appeared and clashed could they see their silhouettes. The strong old man's martial power was naturally stronger. However, even so, he could only barely capture the figure. It was still very difficult to see. Both of them were extremely fast, and both of them had already touched upon the laws of time. Their speed had soared to an unprecedented level. Speed itself was not Lu Xing's strong point, not to mention that his cultivation level was lower than the two of them. He only felt that it was too uncomfortable to watch. At this time, he discovered that Yi Shiwen did not use his full strength at all. Only when facing Emperor Tian Yi Shiwen's combat power was at full capacity. Fortunately, Emperor Tian Yi was here. Otherwise, the three of them would be beaten up by Yi Shiwen in minutes. Yi Shiwen did not use his full strength previously. It should be to guard against Emperor Tian Yi, and not to play with them. However, he still dodged a little further. Although in his opinion, Yi Shiwen was definitely not Emperor Tian Yi's opponent, even so, there was no problem at all to deal with him. The battle between the two in midair became more and more intense. The entire battlefield turned into an ocean of time, and the sky was divided into different plates one by one. The flow of time in each plate was different. Some places were 10 times faster than the outside world, and some places were only 1/10 of the outside world. For people who were not familiar with the time law, even if they just got close, they might be cut into pieces and die a horrible death. Such an intense battle had almost touched the peak of the entire Sovereign Emperor realm, and it quickly attracted a lot of attention. If it was in normal times, perhaps the two of them would soon face the encirclement of many experts in the Netherworld Sea region. However, it was different now. The entire Netherworld Sea region was in a mess. The Nether Heavenly Lord had passed down an order to stop these foreign experts from entering the Netherworld Sea region. However, they didn't have any good way to stop them. These experts were just too strong. They were the best of the best among the best sovereign emperors in various places. They weren't people that they could stop at all. However, they could not disobey Lord Hades' word. Hence, many people thought of a solution. That was to simply capture the weak and let some powerful Emperor Realm experts pass. After all, they really could not stop them. If they tried to stop them by force, they would only end up being killed. However, there were a few Emperor-level lifeforms among the nearby experts. It was just that they did not even have the thought of approaching at this time. The two terrifying forces collided in the distance. No matter which one it was, there was a possibility that they could be killed instantly. Under such circumstances, how would they dare to approach? These outsiders are each stronger than the other. Why does Lord Heavenly Master want us to stop them? Isn't it obvious that we are going to die? An Emperor Realm expert could not help but lament. Shut up. Is this something that you and I can discuss? Immediately, an Emperor Realm expert reprimanded. His voice was a little cautious. One could imagine the supreme power of Lord Hades on normal days. These two people are too terrifying. The laws they use have even reached the level of time law. These two people shouldn't be nobodies in the Fortune Divine Dynasty. I know that person. He is Emperor Tian. He has been famous in the Fortune God Dynasty for a long time. I have heard of his prestige. As for the other one, I don't know. An Emperor Realm expert immediately said. But from the looks of it, I'm afraid he is not an ordinary person. Chapter 3261. Although Yi Shiwen had gained some fame in recent years, that was in the eastern region of the Fortune God Dynasty. He also had some fame in the central region, but it was rather limited. In such a short period of time, it was not enough for his name to spread throughout the Netherworld Sea region, because no one was like Yi Shiwen. His improvement in strength was simply 3 levels. Others had to go through a long period of time to establish their foundation. Hundreds of thousands of years, or even millions of years, before they could spread their fame to the whole world. However, Yi Shiwen's speed of advancement was too fast. So, his fame and strength didn't match. However, after today's battle, regardless of victory or defeat, these Emperor-level creatures would probably put him on the list of the most dangerous. To be able to fight evenly with the 9th Realm Emperor Tian, although he was at a slight disadvantage, it was already shocking enough. It was not difficult to deal with them at all. At this moment, the entire situation had changed from the initial tie. Emperor Tian Yi's shocking strength was completely displayed. This time, he was clearly more careful, and absolutely did not give Yi Shiwen a chance to turn the tables. Relying on his absolute strength to crush Yi Shiwen, he gradually gained the upper hand. However, although Yi Shiwen fell into a disadvantageous position, he did not decline. On the contrary, the more he fought, the more intense his qi and blood became. Therefore, although Emperor Tian could suppress Yi Shiwen, he could only suppress him. He could not go any further and turn this advantage into harm to Yi Shiwen. Emperor Tian was also very depressed. Although he was completely suppressing Yi Shiwen, he could also feel that Yi Shiwen was still inferior to him by a level. However, Yi Shiwen was forcefully holding on with his advantages in all aspects. In comparison, Yi Shiwen was much more excited. The blood in his body was surging, and his martial power was surging, constantly charging towards the 9th realm. The medicinal power of the mysterious creation pill spread out in his body, so he did not have to worry about his martial power being insufficient. This was because every bit he used would be replenished a bit. Unless he used a killer weapon like the Universe Creation Palm, it was still enough. He didn't want to use the Cosmic Creation Palm if he could withstand it with his own strength, because he wanted to use the pressure Emperor Skywing gave him to smoothly break through to the 9th realm in advance. Although Sovereign Skywing gave him tremendous pressure, and he had to use his full strength each time, or he might be heavily injured, this was the best trial for him. As the saying went, seeking riches amidst danger. This was what it meant to him. Ha ha ha, again. Yi Shiwen and Emperor Tian collided again and again. He retreated a few steps. The blood in his body was surging, and he felt uncomfortable. However, he wasn't discouraged at all. It was as if he was the one who had won the collision. Not only did he not evade, but he also rushed forward. This forced Emperor Skywing to have no choice but to continue fighting against him. He must be crazy. The sturdy old man had an indescribable feeling when he saw this scene. He felt that Yi Shiwen had gone completely crazy. Otherwise, how could he have rushed forward when others were trying to avoid him? The other emperors also had the same thought. They saw Yi Shiwen's figure constantly flashing in the void, appearing again and then rushing forward again. They didn't know how many times this process had been repeated. This kind of impact resistance also made many people understand that Yi Shiwen was a freak. His physical cultivation had reached a shocking level. Only Emperor Tian vaguely guessed some of his thoughts. Yi Shiwen was simply using himself as a stepping stone, because he could also faintly feel that Yi Shiwen was becoming stronger. Although these strengthening repetitions were not too big, if it were any other emperor, this little bit of improvement would take hundreds or thousands of years. In this way, Yi Shiwen was very shocking. Damn it, you actually dare to use me as a stepping stone. You must die. Emperor Tian roared. He was extremely angry. At the same time, he might not have noticed it, but he was extremely afraid in his heart. He was afraid that Yi Shiwen's strength had improved further, so he had such a big reaction. The other emperors were not fools. After hearing Emperor Tian Yi's words, they immediately reacted and knew Yi Shiwen's plan. At the same time, they also knew why Yi Shiwen had such a strange action. It turned out that he planned to use Emperor Tian as a stepping stone. However, even though they knew it, they still felt that Yi Shiwen was simply crazy. It was rare to have a breakthrough on the battlefield. Moreover, he was actively seeking a breakthrough. If this was not crazy, what was it? On the other hand, Dan Emperor seemed to have faintly comprehended something. He seemed to have understood why Yi Shiwen was able to improve his cultivation to this level in such a short period of time. This desperate attitude was also one of the important reasons behind it. If it wasn't for such a desperate attitude towards cultivation, it was unlikely that he could improve to the current level in such a short time. Such a battle was rare for many years. Yi Shiwen only felt that his cultivation was still increasing. Initially, his cultivation could only be increased by closed-door training. Now it was increasing rapidly. The gold-plated phoenix wings was like a phoenix. It turned into a ferocious bird, tearing the sky and constantly pouncing towards Yi Shiwen. Extremely terrifying. And the Avicii sword in Yi Shiwen's hand was also constantly bursting with astonishing sword radiance, tearing the sky and turning into a horrifying hell that constantly crushed down. The hell and the ferocious bird collided and fought. Almost every time a world was born, and at the same time, a world was destroyed because of the battle between the two sides. Both sides had almost reached the peak of the Emperor realm. The destructive power of the battle was extremely terrifying, especially under the situation where both sides did not hold back. Not in the Fortune God dynasty, both sides did not have the slightest scruple. The huge battlefield had been turned into a mass of chaos, and almost everything was swallowed up. Damn it, I can't let him continue to break through like this. Otherwise, sooner or later, he will enter the 9th realm. Very soon, Emperor Tian had already discovered this point. Although a breakthrough in battle was also a fantasy for him, Yi Shiwen had already shown a great possibility. He absolutely could not let such a situation happen. Just the current Yi Shiwen was already difficult enough to deal with. If Yi Shiwen entered the 9th realm, it would be terrible. Moreover, Yi Shiwen had not used the palm technique that he was most afraid of. Martial Emperor, today this place will be your graveyard. Emperor Skywing let out a roar as he raised all of his power to the limit. Countless laws swirled around him, forming a terrifying storm. He had already decided to finish this battle once and for all. He could not let Yi Shiwen have a chance to break through. On his body, countless feathers were roaring wildly. In each feather, a holy kingdom was born. This was the true foundation that he had accumulated for tens of thousands of years. He did not have the chance to use it previously, but this time, in order to kill Yi Shiwen, he was determined to fight with all his might. Soon, the transformation began. The countless feathers began to transforming into Emperor Skywing. In the blink of an eye, the entire world seemed to be filled with Emperor Skywing's feathers. Moreover, unlike ordinary primordial spirit avatars, every single one of Emperor Skywing's avatars had the power to destroy the world. Although they were definitely not as powerful as his real body, once the number reached a certain level, they would become extremely terrifying. Even experts in the ninth realm would probably have to flee when faced with such an attack. Yi Shiwen, it is impossible for you to escape. Thousands of Emperor Tian-Yi spoke at the same time. The scene was extremely shocking. The surrounding emperors were almost scared to death. Such a move was not something they could imagine at all. If they were to face such an enemy, it would be better to just kill them. When the well-built old man saw this scene, he could not help but heave a sigh of relief, because he knew that the winner would definitely be them. Although he also knew that such a move would definitely have to pay a huge price, so what? It had nothing to do with him. It was the price that Emperor Tian-Yi had to pay. Moreover, he deeply hated Emperor Tian-Yi for watching from the side and not making a move, causing him to be seriously injured. In his heart, he was even more determined to sit on top of the mountain and watch the tigers fight. In fact, this scene did not seem to require him to make a move. Is this the trump card you've been hiding? But if you want to kill me, it is not enough. Yi Shiwen's eyes emitted a sharp light. He already felt that the breakthrough was right in front of him. This was his opportunity to break through. When he thought of breaking through to the ninth realm, Yi Shiwen would definitely not let go of such an opportunity. However, the enemy in front of him was indeed more terrifying. This move was a trump card that Emperor Tian-Yi had accumulated for many years. It was like the saber aura hidden in the saber of the heaven-devouring demon clan's old ancestor. In terms of practicality, it was not as good as Yi Shiwen's universe creation palm. It could only be used once. He did not know when he would be able to use it again. However, it could only be used once to destroy an extremely terrifying enemy. It was a trump card among the trump cards. Unless his life was threatened, he would not easily use it. However, it was impossible for him to retreat easily. There was no buffer between him and Emperor Tian-Yi. It could only be a matter of life and death. Then let's fight with all our strength. In this battle, I will not let you have the chance to attack again. Yi Shiwen let out a long roar, and his body instantly split into 3,000 martial arts. It was as if 3,000 of him had split out. Each of them was an extremely powerful expert, and they rushed towards the feather avatars of Emperor Tian-Yi. Rumble! There were shocking collisions everywhere. It was like two armies had collided fiercely. The 3,000 martial arts were like 3,000 elite soldiers. Every one of them had cultivated a great path to the point of perfection. They were extremely terrifying. The feather clones opposite them were not so elite. However, they won in terms of numbers. In an instant, the sky was filled with killings. Chapter 3262. All kinds of horrifying fights were endless. In just an instant there was an explosion between heaven and earth. Two shocking torrents collided with each other. Yi Shiwen's 3,000 martial daos were also gorgeous and powerful, but Emperor Tian-Yi's feather incarnations were more numerous. Emperor Tian-Yi frowned slightly. Each feather incarnation required him to spend thousands of years, or even tens of thousands of years to condense. He didn't know how much he had to pay, but now they were being destroyed one by one. However, he had no choice but to watch helplessly. Fortunately, he had the upper hand in the overall situation. Although Yi Shiwen's 3,000 martial arts incarnations were powerful, the number was still less than his own. Moreover, his own skill was stronger. At this time, he could turn it into an infinite advantage. Yi Shiwen's 3,000 martial daos were each the condensation of his own martial daos. The root was the concept of the martial daos incarnation back then. It was sublimated when he reached the Emperor realm, and it couldn't be resurrected so easily. Gradually, the balance was broken. Emperor Tian Yi slowly gained the upper hand, and the territory of Yi Shiwen's 3,000 martial daos became narrower and narrower. Everyone understood that if Yi Shiwen was defeated, rather than saying that he was defeated by Emperor Tian Yi, it would be better to say that he was defeated by Emperor Tian Yi's countless years of foundation. However, Yi Shiwen obviously didn't feel that he was going to be defeated. He didn't even have that kind of mood. Just as the encirclement gradually narrowed, he finally moved. Swoosh! His figure suddenly appeared in front of Emperor Tian Yi's feather incarnation in an instant, and he blasted out a punch. Boom! This Emperor Tian Yi's feather incarnation was no match at all. Although he could pose a threat to ordinary emperor lords, in front of Yi Shiwen, the difference was too great. Boom! 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 Yi Shiwen attacked continuously, and these feather incarnations were destroyed one after another. Kill them all. Emperor Tian Yi wasn't anxious at all, and he just looked coldly. There were too many feather incarnations. With Yi Shiwen's efficiency, he couldn't kill them all. But since you've already made a move, then hand over your life. The wings behind Emperor Tian Yi moved, and his entire figure was like an ancient mountain, and he directly rushed in front of Yi Shiwen. The phoenix wing gold-plated dang in his hand suddenly swept over and went straight towards Yi Shiwen's face. Everything seemed as if the previous situation had reappeared. However, his current situation was even worse than before. He was surrounded by countless feather incarnations. It wouldn't matter if there were only one or two of these feather incarnations. However, their numbers were enough to pose a fatal threat to him. Although he was not as frightening as the heaven-devouring monstrous clan's old ancestor, he was still extremely frightening. However, Yi Shiwen was planning to use this opportunity to hone himself, so how could he retreat? Bang! 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 The battle between the two of them became even more intense. He seemed to be fighting with his life on the line. Not only were they using their bodies, but they were also using their trump cards. Yi Shiwen used all kinds of martial arts in his hand. All of these martial arts had great power in his hands, and the power was so great that it made many people tremble in fear. But even so, he was still in a precarious situation. Emperor Tian Yi's phoenix wing gold-plated dang almost cut open the world and reshaped the chaos. Although he couldn't suppress Yi Shiwen with one hand like last time, he still put Yi Shiwen in danger after using the feather incarnations. Just a little bit more, and he will die under my phoenix wing gold-plated dang. Emperor Tian Yi gritted his teeth and didn't care about the source of his power. He kept attacking and forced Yi Shiwen into a dead end. He must let Yi Shiwen die here. On the other side, Yi Shiwen was also calculating in his heart, just a little bit more, and I can break through. He already felt that the realm barrier in his body was already on the verge of collapse. Just a little bit more and he could break through. If he didn't break through here, he didn't know how long it would take for him to break through later. Die. The phoenix wing gold-plated dang in Emperor Tian Yi's hand directly slashed over. The phoenix wing gold-plated dang began to burn. The speed was too fast, and the power was too strong, causing the laws to burn. Finally, Yi Shiwen let out a huge roar, and the Avicii sword in his hand slashed out a shocking light. Rumble! In the shocking collision, Yi Shiwen only felt the terrifying pressure crushing on his body. He was also burning his own qi and blood, but the opposite Emperor Tian Yi was doing his best, and it seemed like he was going to kill Yi Shiwen in one breath. 1 inch. 1 inch. 1 inch. The phoenix wing gold-plated dang approached Yi Shiwen's neck inch by inch. Emperor Tian Yi, who was using his full strength, was too strong. Universe creation palm. Every pore on Yi Shiwen's body was spitting out spiritual energy, and it turned into a huge hand. It condensed into a palm, and it slapped towards Emperor Tian Yi fiercely. This palm had a terrifying power that could destroy the world. It grabbed everything into it, as if the entire universe creation palm was reshaped, and its power was infinite. Damn it! Emperor Tian-yi saw the formation of this huge hand, and he knew that this should be Yi Shiwen's final trump card. But seeing that he was about to kill Yi Shiwen, he was absolutely unwilling to give up like this. The wings behind him spread out directly, and it covered the sky and the earth. It was like the wings of the sky, and it covered the world majestically, trying to stop the palm from falling. Rumble! The universe creation palm fell on the wings of Emperor Tian-yi, and an extremely terrifying collision occurred. However, such a collision only lasted for a moment. Emperor Tian-yi's wings could not withstand the shocking palm power at all, and it instantly turned into nothingness. Immediately after, this palm fell with lightning speed. It was like a mountain pressing down, and it went straight towards Emperor Tian-yi. Even though Emperor Tian-yi's current strength was stronger than Yi Shiwen's, he still could not easily block the universe creation palm. If not, he would not be seriously injured by Yi Shiwen. He was not Yi Shiwen. During this period of time, he had spent most of his energy just to recover his strength and heal his injuries. It was impossible for him to improve his cultivation in such a short time like Yi Shiwen. Thump thump thump. Emperor Tian-yi retreated continuously, and only barely managed to dodge the universe creation palm. The thousands of miles in front of him had already been completely transformed. Just as he planned to rush forward again. But he saw that Yi Shiwen's aura seemed to have broken through some shackles, and it gushed out endlessly. It fell down one by one, and it was like the stars in the sky shooting out in all directions. Boom! 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 The aura on Yi Shiwen's body grew in circles. With each circle that grew stronger, it formed a terrifying explosion. It was like the repressed horrifying power was released, and it overflowed crazily. The law intertwined, the stars revolved, and the purple aura fell from the sky with great momentum. It was as if the ruler of the world had awakened at this moment. He opened his eyes, and the world was filled with vitality. He was the god of creation. The ninth realm. Emperor Skywing seemed to shout these 3 words with a hoarse roar. He could not be clearer. This was clearly the scene of stepping into the ninth realm. Because he was also in the ninth realm, he naturally could not be clearer. He actually really stepped into the ninth realm on the battlefield. The others were completely dumbfounded. Although they were not in the ninth realm, they could still see that Yi Shiwen had a breakthrough. Yi Shiwen was already at the peak of the eighth realm. If he stepped into the ninth realm, what did that mean? It meant that he had already stepped into the ninth realm. And this was actually done by Yi Shiwen. Was he really a monster? When everyone thought that Yi Shiwen could not do it and was just holding on, he really did it. This shocked everyone, and they were shocked by Yi Shiwen's amazing performance. I finally reached the ninth realm. Yi Shiwen opened his eyes slightly, and there was an amazing light shining in his eyes. He finally stepped into the ninth realm. He felt that the spiritual power of his entire body had been raised to the peak. Every move he made was much more powerful than before he broke through. Compared to the eighth realm, the ninth realm and the ninth realm were really not the same thing. Although he had 1 foot into the ninth realm previously, he did not step into it after all. He could not understand the terrifying gap in strength. Emperor Tian-yi, the problem between you and me can be solved in one go now. Yi Shiwen stared coldly at Emperor Tian-yi. His eyes were as sharp as a sword. In the end, Emperor Skywing was a veteran emperor. He had experienced many trials and tribulations. He quickly calmed down, completely suppressing the shock in his heart. He just said coldly, "Do you think you can kill me just because you've reached the ninth realm?" At this moment, he no longer said whether Yi Shiwen was his opponent. He only said that Yi Shiwen could not kill him. He still had this bit of confidence. Really? Then come and try. Do you remember I said that if I were in the same realm as you, I would beat you up like a dead dog? As he spoke, Yi Shiwen moved. This time, he did not give the initiative to Emperor Tian, but took the initiative to attack. Whoosh! Everyone only saw Yi Shiwen's figure suddenly disappear in the sky. Before they could react, they saw Yi Shiwen had already rushed in front of Emperor Tian. He clenched his 5 fingers into a fist and punched out. Boom! It was just a simple punch, but it had unimaginable amazing power. Heaven and earth were pierced, and everything collapsed in an instant. So fast. Emperor Tian only had time to raise his hand to block, but he immediately felt a horrifying strange force engulfing his body. Then, he let out a muffled groan, and his entire body flew out instantly. His figure tore a huge crack in the sky, and endless chaos poured out. And this was just a punch. Chapter 3263. How can he be so strong? Emperor Tian was blasted away. He still couldn't believe it. He could only feel his arms trembling. The power of one punch had already reached the limit. Yi Shiwen had only increased to the same realm as him, but it had suddenly increased to such a level. It was simply shocking. How much foundation had he accumulated in the 8th realm? It was not rare for a sovereign emperor to accumulate sufficient accumulations in a certain cultivation realm and advance in one go, becoming invincible in the next cultivation realm. Although the cultivation of the Emperor-Lord realm was very long, there would always be some people who held back in retreat for millions of years, tens of millions of years, or even longer. However, as far as he knew, it had not even been 10,000 years since Yi Shiwen had entered the 9th realm, let alone millions of years or tens of millions of years. What benefits had he obtained in just a few thousand years that allowed his accumulation to be so deep? No wonder Yi Shiwen was able to compete with him when he only had 1 foot in the 9th realm. At that time, he had never thought that Yi Shiwen's strength could actually increase to this level after entering the 9th realm. At this moment, he suddenly remembered what Yi Shiwen had said before. They were both in the 9th realm, but Yi Shiwen was able to beat him up. Originally, he had completely scoffed at such a statement, but now he realized that he had to believe it even if he didn't want to. The strong old man and many emperor-level creatures next to him were also stunned. Although Yi Shiwen had entered the 9th realm, this was too exaggerated. He had beaten Emperor Tian with 1 punch. That sturdy old man suddenly felt a strong threat. It was a kind of intuition that told him that Yi Shiwen in front of him was very dangerous. After sending Emperor Tian flying with 1 punch, Yi Shiwen was not in a hurry to attack. He was still adapting to the explosive energy. For him, in order to enter the 9th realm, he had already made too many preparations. The barrier of the 9th realm had firmly blocked him. Now that he had finally broken through this barrier, the peak of the 9th realm was within reach. The most important thing to enter from the 9th realm to the peak of the 9th realm was accumulation. Although he did not have much time now, he still had a heaven-devouring blood elixir that he had yet to consume. At that time, it would only be a matter of time before he truly became the strongest below the heavenly venerate level. He would also be more confident in dealing with the heavenly venerate divine fire and the heaven-devouring demon monarch. Yi Shiwen glanced at the heavenly wing emperor's feather incarnation that filled the sky and just sneered. Then, he directly attacked. A palm formed like the hand of God, covered the entire battlefield, mighty and endless. Universe creation palm. Boom! Everyone watched as the huge hand came crashing down in all directions. The feather clones had no time to dodge. The moment they came into contact with the cosmic creation palm, they were all vaporized by a terrifying force. Boom! 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 Shocking collisions could be heard everywhere. Then, everyone saw a horrifying scene. An extremely horrifying scene. More than half of the endless feather clones in the sky were swept away on the spot. It's just a palm. What kind of martial arts is this? Many people were dumbfounded. Only Heavenly Wing Emperor knew about the universe creation palm long ago, but he was still shocked by the amazing power of this palm technique. Because he realized that this palm technique would actually increase exponentially with the improvement of Yi Shiwen's strength. This was the most terrifying thing. Even with his current vision, he could see that this martial art did not look like an Emperor Lord's martial art at all. Although the power of an Emperor Lord's martial art would increase with the strength of the Emperor Lord, he had never heard of it increasing by several times. Universe Creation Palm. Another palm fell. Suddenly, the feather clones of Heavenly Wing Emperor were completely swept away. The originally densely packed feather clones that seemed to be able to fill up the sky and earth had completely disappeared without a trace. They still wanted to besiege Yi Shiwen. Now, it was obvious that it was simply impossible. He settled it so easily. Alchemy Emperor in the distance couldn't help but swallow a mouthful of saliva and said, when Heavenly Wing Emperor used this move just now, he was almost in despair. But now it was easily settled by Yi Shiwen. He couldn't help but have a feeling of disbelief. His worldview was about to completely collapse. Yi Shiwen also withdrew the 3,000 martial arts clones into his body and looked coldly at Heavenly Wing Emperor. It's your turn next. His eyes flickered with horrifying killing intent. If Heavenly Wing wasn't eliminated, he would become a great threat in the future. Heavenly Wing Emperor saw the flickering killing intent in Yi Shiwen's eyes, and his heart suddenly tightened. However, he didn't act rashly because the current situation was already different from before. Previously, he could leave if he wanted to. But now, even if he wanted to leave, it was simply impossible. Yi Shiwen's speed was extremely fast. He was not inferior to Heavenly Wing Emperor. In fact, Yi Shiwen's comprehension of the power of time was above Heavenly Wing Emperor. Without the advantage of realm and skill, it was really difficult to say who would be the winner. Swoosh! Heavenly Wing only saw a blur in front of his eyes. Suddenly, a figure had already pounced in front of him. 5 fingers clenched into a fist, traversed time and space, and instantly blasted towards Heavenly Wing Emperor's face. Fast, fast, fast. Everything happened too fast. It was even so fast that Heavenly Wing Emperor could only see a figure with his speed. He only had time to raise his hand to block. Instantly, everyone only saw Heavenly Wing Emperor being blasted away like a cannonball. Then, there was another muffled groan. When everyone caught sight of Heavenly Wing Emperor's figure again, they found that he was half kneeling in the sky. His entire arm was hanging down softly. It was fractured by Yi Shiwen's punch. Blood gushed out and slid down from his arm. Heavenly Wing Emperor's face was pale. His eyes revealed a hint of ferocity. With the recovery ability of an emperor, this kind of injury naturally began to recover very quickly. The blood finally stopped flowing. He suddenly retreated thousands of miles. His figure seemed to teleport as he frantically retreated backward. Yi Shiwen's figure had already appeared in this position when everyone was wondering what he wanted to do. His fist pierced through the vast sky and turned the sky within a radius of 1,000 miles into chaos. The might of his fist had actually reached such a level. Everyone couldn't help but feel a chill in their hearts. You dodged quite quickly. Yi Shiwen sneered, and his figure disappeared again. Damn it, he's too fast. Heavenly Wing Emperor retreated continuously, but there was no way. It was difficult for him to capture Yi Shiwen's figure. Before Yi Shiwen entered the 9th realm, his speed was almost on par with him. Not to mention now that Yi Shiwen had entered the 9th realm, his speed had risen to a limit. He hurriedly wrapped the pair of wings on his back around his entire body. However, even so, it was of no use at all. With a loud bang, there was a fierce collision sound. A fist actually broke through the protection of the wings and directly blasted in front of his face. His defense looked so ridiculous in front of Yi Shiwen's fist. It was completely useless. Go to hell. This is the moment I've been waiting for. In Heavenly Wing Emperor's hand, the gold-plated phoenix wing pendant had already appeared. It suddenly slid down and directly went towards Yi Shiwen's figure. He knew that his speed was not as fast as Yi Shiwen, so he came up with this method to wait for Yi Shiwen to be exhausted and exchange injury for injury. He had to severely injure Yi Shiwen in one go. Facing the gold-plated phoenix wing pendant that was slashing horizontally, Yi Shiwen did not have the slightest intention to dodge. He directly changed the direction of his fist and directly punched the gold-plated phoenix wing pendant with his bare hand. Dang! With a loud bang, Yi Shiwen's fist energy was released and collided with the law on the gold-plated phoenix wing pendant. There was a burst of dazzling divine light, like a waterfall dancing in the sky. It overflowed and formed a terrible storm that spread in all directions, resisting a top-notch Dao tool with bare hands. Many Emperor-class creatures could not help but suck in a breath of cold air when they saw this. They knew how difficult this was. If an Empyrean king could resist a Dao tool with his bare hands, then why would they risk their lives to refine a Dao tool? It was because a Dao tool could greatly enhance the combat power of an Emperor Lord that it was so sought after. Especially the gold-plated phoenix wing pendant. After becoming a Dao tool, it had been sacrificially refined by Heavenly Wing Emperor many times. Its power was no longer the same as before. It could be called a top-notch Dao tool, but Yi Shiwen still resisted it with bare hands. The sharpness of the gold-plated phoenix wing pendant could not even break the defense of Yi Shiwen's body surface. At most, it could only leave a white mark on it. Such a physical cultivation was simply terrifying. His speed was fast, and his physical cultivation was terrifyingly strong. Moreover, from his 3,000 martial arts incarnations, it could be seen that Yi Shiwen's understanding of the law and the Great Way had really reached an unprecedented level. It was simply perfect in all aspects without any flaws. How could such a person be defeated? However, many Emperor-level creatures were very glad that this terrifying monster's enemy was not them. Otherwise, what would they do? However, for Heavenly Wing Emperor, he had to face this terrifying guy directly. However, things had already happened. There was no time for him to think more. Yi Shiwen's next punch had already blasted over. It was not a magical martial art at all. He was invincible just by relying on his tyrannical physical body. Yi Shiwen had said before that if they were in the same realm, he could definitely beat Heavenly Wing Emperor. Boom! 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 Yi Shiwen blasted over and over again. Heavenly Wing Emperor could only forcefully resist with the gold-plated phoenix wing pendant. Crack! After being hit for an unknown number of times, cracks appeared on the gold-plated phoenix wing pendant. Chapter 3264. Crack, crack. A cracking sound came from the gold-plated phoenix wing pendant. The gold-plated phoenix wing pendant was cracked. As time passed, the cracks on the gold-plated phoenix wing pendant became bigger and bigger. Then, with the point that Yi Shiwen hit as the center, the cracks spread out like a spider web in all directions. The other Emperor Lords were scared to the point of peeing. It was already scary enough to fight against a top Dao tool with bare hands. Now, Yi Shiwen even had the ability to break a top Dao tool directly. In fact, it was very difficult to break the opponent's Dao tool even with a Dao tool, let alone with bare hands. He's really a monster. Many people couldn't help but suck in a breath of cold air. Then, they swallowed a mouthful of saliva as they thought back to the top physical cultivators they knew. It seemed that none of them could be this strong, unless they were at the heavenly venerate level. Emperor Tian-Yi retreated again and again. His figure kept retreating because of Yi Shiwen's attack. His figure would fly out with every heavy blow. However, he had no way to counterattack at all. He could only defend with all his strength and defend with the phoenix wing gold-plated pendant. Even though the gold-plated phoenix wing pendant had offset most of the power, his entire arm was still completely numb. He felt that his entire arm was about to break apart with every shock. After all, the gold-plated phoenix wing pendant was not a Dao tool that specialized in defense. It couldn't completely offset Yi Shiwen's monstrous power. Yi Shiwen's strength also shocked Emperor Tian-Yi to be able to do this with his own strength. At this time, he was already regretting in his heart. He didn't regret finding trouble with Yi Shiwen, but he regretted not being more cautious and bringing a few more experts to kill Yi Shiwen in one fell swoop in the Fortune Divine capital. Then, there wouldn't be so many things later. Yi Shiwen's attack seemed to be boundless, but in fact, all of the power was in his hands. Therefore, each of his attacks was accurate to an unimaginable extent. Each of his attacks hit the same point, and under the continuous bombardment, cracks finally appeared on the Phoenix Wing gold-plated dang. Due to the restorative ability of a Dao tool, even if there were some cracks, it would be able to quickly recover. However, Yi Shiwen's terrifying destructive power continued to bombard the Phoenix Wing gold-plated pendant one after another. Therefore, the restorative ability of the Phoenix Wing gold-plated pendant became useless. Finally, the cracks caused the entire gold-plated Phoenix Wing pendant to crack uncontrollably and spread rapidly. Clang! With a loud bang, the entire gold-plated Phoenix Wing pendant finally broke into two. Then, everyone saw that without the gold-plated Phoenix Wing pendant as a shield, Emperor Heavenly Wing was unable to withstand so much power pouring out. He was sent flying on the spot, and blood instantly splashed out. His entire arm had already been injured by Yi Shiwen, and now blood was splashing out, and the muscles of his entire arm had exploded. Without the Phoenix Wing gold-plated pendant, Emperor Tian-Yi's combat power immediately dropped by a level. What made many people even more horrified was that Yi Shiwen was only relying on his own strength to fight so far. He had not used his full strength at all. However, even so, Emperor Tian-Yi could not resist at all. How can it be? How can he be so strong? He has only entered the 9th realm. How can his combat power improve so much in one go? The sturdy old man looked at Yi Shiwen as if he had seen a ghost. He couldn't believe it at all. Although he didn't participate in the battle, he saw the battle clearly. If he didn't see it with his own eyes, he wouldn't believe it. A person who came later actually defeated Emperor Tian-Yi in a crushing manner. If he was allowed to grow, it would be a piece of cake for him to grow to the level of the 10 major emperors in the future. Only at this level. It's really disappointing, Yi Shiwen said with a faint smile. The qi and blood of his entire body were raised to the extreme. His dual pupils seemed to be able to see through the past and the future, seeing everything in his eyes. You dare to make my human clan surrender with just this? Yi Shiwen looked at Emperor Tian-Yi and said, "It would be fine if you did not appear, but you actually dare to organize people to ambush me. You must be tired of living." Emperor Tian-Yi could not help but sigh in relief when he saw that Yi Shiwen did not immediately pounce on him. He quickly took this opportunity to recover his body. At this moment, he already had the intention to retreat. This time, he could be said to have exhausted all his schemes and used all his means, but he still could not do anything to Yi Shiwen. Yi Shiwen actually allowed Yi Shiwen to break through to the 9th realm. There was really no other way. Stop talking nonsense. It's just a battle. He already felt that all his escape routes were sealed by Yi Shiwen. It was impossible to escape. The whole world seemed to be in the hands of Yi Shiwen. Since Yi Shiwen entered the 9th realm, his control of heaven and earth had already surpassed Yi Shiwen's. The balance between both sides had long begun to tilt. Now that he had been forced into such a situation, he no longer had any thoughts of escaping. Over the years, he had been a top-notch sovereign emperor that roamed the world. Naturally, he still had some pride. Well said. It's just a battle. Last time, you escaped from my hands. This time, you will definitely not escape from my hands again. I know that you were not convinced that I used the universe creation palm to defeat you last time. Now, I will use my original power to defeat you." As Yi Shiwen spoke, he finally moved. He had almost grasped all the power in his body. Emperor Tian-Yi was stalling for time, but wasn't he also stalling for time so that he could adapt to the strength of the ninth realm? 6 Paths of Reincarnation Fist. Yi Shiwen clenched his 5 fingers into a fist and punched out. The aura of 6 Paths of Reincarnation swept into 6 huge storm of laws. It surrounded his arm and swept wildly. Behind him, 6 Paths of Reincarnation condensed and began to rotate one by one. In an instant, the power of heaven and earth was driven by Yi Shiwen's fist. Emperor Tian-Yi was forced to this extent, and his ferocious nature was unleashed. He simply let out a long roar and wanted to fight with Yi Shiwen. He raised his other uninjured arm and blasted out a punch. Suddenly, countless feathers gathered and scattered. It was almost as if there were endless evolution of laws. It was also an extremely brilliant fist technique. Although he had left the phoenix wing gold-plated pendant and his entire strength was reduced by a level, he was not helpless. Bang! The 2 fists collided fiercely, and the natural laws of both sides manifested, transforming into a terrifying domain, transforming into a frightening power of the heavens, devouring each other, almost completely annihilating everything about the other. Emperor Skywing was only able to hold on for a short period of time before he felt that his fist seemed to have encountered the most terrifying thing in the world. He was unable to withstand it at all and was immediately smashed into pieces like a thin piece of paper. The momentum of Yi Shiwen's fist didn't diminish, and it fiercely blasted towards Emperor Tian-Yi's face. Not only did his fist momentum not diminish, but it also increased rapidly with the passage of time. Especially after breaking Emperor Tian-Yi's fist momentum, it seemed to have absorbed some nourishment, and had already grown to a point where it was difficult to resist. Bang! Emperor Tian-Yi dodged slightly. He only had time to resist a little before he was sent flying. His shoulder had already been smashed into pieces. Flesh and blood were everywhere, and blood splattered everywhere. What a terrifying fist momentum! Dende could feel the pain when the law storm brought by Yi Shiwen's 6 Paths of Reincarnation fist scratched his face. With his emperor's physique, he could still feel this pain. It was imaginable how painful this punch was. Just watching from afar, Dende felt the pain on behalf of Emperor Tian-Yi. He had suffered this blow. Empyrean Emperor Skywing could no longer sense any of this. He felt as though the world had suddenly turned dark. This was a sign that he was about to faint. For an Empyrean emperor, this was practically impossible. The so-called fainting was just a subconscious means to protect the body. However, for an emperor, he had long controlled every cell and every atom of his body. This kind of fainting was almost impossible for him. He forcefully clenched his teeth to wake himself up, but it was of no use at all because Yi Shiwen's next blow had already landed. Above Emperor Tian-Yi, the seal of the overturning sky seal was formed by the martial emperor's seal. It expanded against the wind and rotated. It was almost like an ancient sacred mountain as it fell down fiercely. Boom! All of this happened too quickly, not giving him the slightest chance to escape. His entire body slammed into the sea region. Instantly, a huge pit was formed in the entire sea region. It was like a meteorite hitting a planet. It was even more spectacular. The destructive power of an emperor was too shocking. In just an instant, countless races were killed. Emperor Tian-Yi only felt that his body was collapsing on the spot. Under the attack of the martial emperor's seal, it completely collapsed. He couldn't resist at all and completely turned into a cloud of blood mist. He kept roaring and tried to struggle, but it was of no use at all. Above his head, another sword light fell down fiercely like a galaxy. Poochie! Emperor Tian Yi's struggling spirit was destroyed by this sword light in an instant. Even the spirit of a ninth realm emperor couldn't withstand such continuous attacks. It completely turned his spirit into nothingness. As soon as Emperor Tian Yi's body reassembled, Yi Shiwen kept it together with the two pieces of the phoenix wing gold-plated pendant. When the robust old man saw this scene, he was almost scared to death, because he saw that Yi Shiwen was actually looking at him. Chapter 3265. The burly old man felt it the moment Yi Shiwen stared at him. He felt a chill down his spine. The battle just now ended too quickly. The speed of Emperor Tian Yi's defeat was also far beyond everyone's imagination. No one expected that Emperor Tian Yi, who was also in the ninth realm, would be so vulnerable when facing Yi Shiwen. He was not Yi Shiwen's opponent at all. In just a moment, he was completely defeated. Especially after he lost the phoenix wing gold-plated pendant, he could not even withstand a few moves from Yi Shiwen. This made Yi Shiwen even more terrifying. By the time he reacted, it was already too late. Yi Shiwen had completely freed his hands. The burly old man quickly shuddered, and his entire figure gradually disappeared into the air. It turned out that he had already fled thousands of miles away. This was just an afterimage. Although his cultivation was not as good as Yi Shiwen and Emperor Tian Yi, he was still at the peak of the eighth realm. At this time, his speed of escape was also extremely fast. Yi Shiwen sneered slightly and said, "Want to leave?" His double pupils opened, and the entire world was within his sight. He immediately found that the burly old man's figure had already flown hundreds of thousands of miles away. However, it didn't have any effect on Yi Shiwen. He directly shot out his palm. Suddenly, the mighty palm momentum covered the sky. There was no hope of survival under the universe creation palm. Boom! The muscular old man desperately tried to fly, but it was useless. He only felt that the entire sky was covered by this giant hand. The speed at which the giant hand slammed down became faster and faster, and finally, it landed on his body. In an instant, an earth-shattering sound spread out like a nuclear explosion. Bone fragments flew everywhere and blood splattered everywhere. The sturdy old man was smashed into pieces by a single palm strike and turned into a bloody mist that filled the sky on the spot. An expert at the peak of the eighth realm could not even withstand one move from Yi Shiwen. He was instantly severely injured. Before he could reassemble his physical body, a sword light fell from the sky and fell into the blood mist, killing his spirit completely. After a while, his reassembled physical body was also kept by Yi Shiwen. After killing this burly old man at the peak of the eighth realm, Yi Shiwen just glanced around. Those emperor-level creatures who were secretly watching suddenly felt a chill down their spines, like they were being stared at by a monster. Suddenly, they understood that this was Yi Shiwen's warning to them. They didn't dare to stay any longer, and quickly scattered like birds and beasts. Although doing so would be very shameful for the emperor-level lifeforms, but compared to losing face, their lives were more important. Not to mention, they were also very clear that even if they rushed up and besieged Yi Shiwen, they would ultimately be killed in one move. Just as they thought, Yi Shiwen was indeed warning them. He did not intend to start a massacre because he was not sure what it would attract. The Netherworld Sea region was too mysterious and powerful. Today was not the day to start a massacre. Then, he counted the harvest this time. As a ninth realm emperor, Emperor Tian Yi was indeed very rich. Together with the other eighth realm experts, he obtained a total of 60 level 2 dragon veins. In addition to the 10 level 2 dragon veins that he burned, Yi Shiwen finally obtained a total of 50 level 2 dragon veins. This was the most direct wealth. If he wanted to exchange the rest for dragon veins, he would have to wait until he came out of the path of creation. But even so, he was overjoyed. Sure enough, a horse would not be fat without grass at night. Congratulations on your breakthrough, Martial Emperor. Alchemy Emperor looked a little embarrassed because he could not help much during the battle just now and could only watch from the side. However, this congratulation was sincere. He was now under Yi Shiwen's command. The stronger Yi Shiwen's strength was, the better it would be for him. With a Ninth Realm Emperor overseeing, the rise of the human race would be unstoppable. It could be said that apart from the few forces on the surface, the human race was already second to none. The heaven-devouring demon race only had 2 Ninth Realm Emperors, but they could already do whatever they wanted in the East region. This was the reason. Yi Shiwen was overjoyed and said, "Same to you, same to you." After stepping into the Ninth Realm, he could already faintly feel that there was a clear realm above the Emperor. Perhaps that was the Heavenly Master Realm. At first, he couldn't feel it at all. However, when he truly entered the Ninth Realm, many things naturally appeared in his mind. We have already wasted a lot of time here. Let's hurry up and go. Yi Shiwen did not say much. Yes. Alchemy Emperor immediately put away his other thoughts and said quickly. The two hurriedly flew in the direction of the crack. All kinds of battles were still erupting everywhere. The battles between the experts of the Netherworld Sea region and the invading forces had never stopped. This was also the reason why such a large-scale battle between Yi Shiwen and Emperor Tian-Yi didn't attract too much attention. Only some low-level Emperor-level lifeforms surrounded them. However, as time passed, more and more experts were approaching the spatial crack. There were Fortune Divine Dynasty's Emperor Realm experts, as well as other creatures' Emperor Realm experts. Yi Shiwen and Alchemy Emperor were hidden among these people. Yi Shiwen was not in a hurry. He could use this opportunity to consolidate his cultivation. The good fortune is mine. All of you, go to hell. How dare you snatch the good fortune from me? All kinds of shouts resounded in the void. Even emperors did not seem very outstanding in such an environment. A huge crack was like a wound in the sky. From afar, it looked like a wound, but from close up, it was like an abyss. It was dark and deep, and one could not see the bottom at all. Yi Shiwen originally thought that those emperors who arrived early should have already entered the path of good fortune. But when he arrived, he realized that this was not the case. That was because there was actually a barrier surrounding the entire crevice. It was impossible for those sovereign emperors to break through it even if they wanted to. It's the work of a heavenly lord. Yi Shiwen narrowed his eyes and immediately recognized it. He was hidden in the crowd, standing in the crack between the planes, and did not show himself. This was because he had already discovered many tyrannical figures. Each of these figures was unparalleled in martial arts. The aura they emitted made people feel despair. No one dared to approach them at all. Only they dared to stand in front of everyone casually. The others had hidden themselves almost as soon as they arrived, so as to avoid being targeted. Hiss, who the hell set up a boundary to block the emperors? Alchemy Emperor could not help but gasp. He could also see that the person who set up the boundary was powerful. Yi Shiwen smiled faintly. His eyes kept searching in the void, but he said, "In the Netherworld Sea region, who else has such strength besides Heavenly Lord Hades?" From afar, he saw two familiar figures. They were the Battle Emperor and the Night Emperor. These two were also well-known figures in the Ninth Realm. They stood at the pinnacle of the world's thearchs and emperor-level creatures. They were the strongest in this realm. Night Emperor was in existence at the level of the 10 Great Emperors. Although the Battle Emperor was not among the 10 Great Emperors, it was generally believed that he was at least at this level. He might even be in existence that surpassed this level. It was just that no one knew how powerful he would be when he unleashed his true combat power. There was no trace of anyone else around these two. They were dominating this area. The Butterfly Sovereign did not appear either? Is she hiding? Yi Shiwen discovered something interesting. He didn't know whether the Night Emperor had brought anyone with him. However, the Battle Emperor had definitely brought someone with him. Whether it was the Butterfly Sovereign or the other top-notch experts that the Butterfly Sovereign had mentioned, they would encircle the Night Emperor. However, none of them were here now. There was only one possibility. They were also hiding in the space layer or in the plane gap. It seemed like the Battle Emperor did not want people to know about his trump card so quickly. Even the matter of surrounding and killing Night Emperor was carried out in secret, so that Night Emperor would not have any chance to notice. Since that was the case, Yi Shiwen also gave up on the idea of greeting them. Currently, in the sky, countless emperors were divided into two formations according to their respective camps: the Fortune God Dynasty and the Foreign Realm Creatures. The Battle Emperor and Night Emperor were the top figures in their respective formations. They looked at each other from afar, and their eyes were filled with coldness. If it was not for the fact that today's matter involved the path of creation and the attainment of creation, both parties would have already started a huge battle. However, both parties had a tacit understanding at this moment. They knew that it was useless to continue the confrontation, so they might as well break the boundary first. On this issue, both parties had common interests. Therefore, they did not hold back and attacked one after another. However, what made the emperors feel hopeless was that no matter how they attacked, they could not break the boundary set up by the Nether Heavenly Lord. "How bold you actually dare to invade my Netherworld sea region!" An extremely cold voice rang out from the void. Everyone couldn't help but shiver. An overwhelming pressure pressed down on them, almost like a mountain pressing down on them, pressing down on the hearts of all the sovereign emperors. Almost at the same time, the emperors who were being crushed automatically activated their defense mode. All the auras on their bodies were automatically released to resist this crushing pressure. In an instant, the majestic auras of emperors overflowed in the entire battlefield. There were thousands of them, and their power was extremely terrifying. "Oh no, the Nether Heavenly Lord has made a move!" Many people could not help but have a change of expression, especially some of the older emperors. They knew that the Heavenly Lords had an agreement not to attack the emperors easily. Now, the Nether Heavenly Lord was obviously not going to abide by the agreement. Chapter 3266. Many veteran Emperor Lords had heard of such a rumor. Although no one knew whether it was true or not, Heavenly Venerables had rarely appeared over the years, let alone taking action. Therefore, there had been no way to verify this rumor. However, many people believed that it should be true. Otherwise, no matter how many Emperor Lords the Heavenly Venerables went on a killing spree, they would not be able to stop them. All these years, Heavenly Venerate Nether had been holed up in the Netherworld sea region. Although he was still very famous, many people had clearly forgotten about him, or rather, ignored him. Otherwise, he would not have dared to kill his way into the Netherworld sea region so unscrupulously. However, at this moment, Heavenly Venerate Nether was going to take action. This made the expressions of many veteran Emperor Lords, especially the Battle Emperor, Night Emperor, and the others, change. Although the Heavenly Venerate Nether was famous, they were not powerless to fight back and could only wait to be slaughtered. If they faced the Heavenly Venerate Nether alone, their chances of victory might be extremely small. However, the sovereign emperors present were not ordinary people. If they went all out, even if the opponent was Heavenly Venerate Nether, they might still be able to fight back. Of course, it was hard to say what price they would have to pay. However, they had already been forced to this point. How could they have the time to think so much? Right at this moment, another fluctuation suddenly appeared in the sky. Heavenly Venerate Nether, why make things difficult for them? This time, the path of creation has opened. Many people from the Netherworld sea region are also qualified to enter, right? Don't be too overbearing. Otherwise, it will not be good if you provoke public anger. This voice was very calm, as if it was talking about something very ordinary. Everyone immediately pricked up their ears. It was obvious that another supreme existence had taken action. However, Who was it that could stand on equal footing with Heavenly Venerate Nether? Heavenly Venerate North? Do you think I don't know what you are thinking? However, others may not know what is on the path of creation, but do you not? You're really ruthless, but since you've spoken, I'll give you face today. As soon as this voice fell, Heavenly Venerate Nether's pressure disappeared. Even the boundary around the crack disappeared without a trace. At this time, everyone finally understood that it was Lord North who had spoken. No wonder even Lord Hades had no choice but to give him face. The Northern Heavenly Venerate's main opponent was the Nether Heavenly Venerate, the supreme existence that presided over the northern region. In the distant past, the borders between the Fortune Divine Dynasty and the outer regions had not yet been fixed. It was not uncommon for the Fortune God Dynasty to organize an army to slaughter their way into the northern region, or for the foreign tribes to plunder the northern region. Under such circumstances, not to mention an emperor, even an empyrean would have to make a move. Lord Northern Lord and Lord Hades had fought many times. As for the outcome, no one knew. At their level, if they didn't go all out, they could at most maintain a stalemate. However, no matter what, the Northern Heavenly Venerate was a supreme existence that could fight against Heavenly Venerate Hades. The two of them must have had some misgivings about each other. Otherwise, they wouldn't have made Heavenly Venerate Hades retreat with just one sentence. As a result, the Nether Heavenly Lord's grand plan ended hastily. The moment the enchantment was lifted, many emperors turned into balls of light and flew into the crack. What is Heavenly Venerate Hades talking about? Yi Shiwen frowned slightly. He only felt that there was something fishy about this matter. This matter was not right from the beginning. Why did the Nether Heavenly Venerable want to stop others from entering? This was completely illogical. If he did so, not only would he be standing on the opposite side of the Fortune God Dynasty, but he would also be offending the other outer domains. What was the reason behind Heavenly Venerate Hades' opposition, but the Fortune God Dynasty vigorously pushed for it? He wasn't a 3-year-old child. Naturally, he wouldn't be naive enough to think that the world was black and white. Everything that Heavenly Venerate Hades supported was wrong, and everything that the Fortune God Dynasty supported was right. However, he still couldn't figure it out. At this time, he had too little information in his hands. After all, he wasn't a Heavenly Venerate, so he couldn't come into contact with many things. Martial Emperor, hurry up or we won't make it in time. The Alchemy Emperor couldn't help but feel anxious when he saw that Yi Shiwen didn't move and seemed to be thinking about something. Yi Shiwen finally raised his head and said, "All right, let's go." The two of them took a big stride forward and also stepped on a ray of immortal light, disappearing into the dark crack. As soon as they entered the crack, Yi Shiwen immediately felt a powerful force tearing at his body. A powerful force was wreaking havoc. Soon, the two of them passed through the crack. After entering the crack, the two of them opened their eyes and immediately saw a scene of surging immortal mist. There were indescribable crystals everywhere, which was different from the scene that Yi Shiwen had seen when he entered the path of creation. It seems like the path of creation is definitely more than what I saw when I came here. Yi Shiwen thought to himself. When he first came here, he saw the same path. However, when he saw it now, it was a completely different scene. However, there were still some similarities. Just like before, as soon as Yi Shiwen entered the path of creation, he immediately felt the spiritual power in his body being consumed rapidly. Every step forward consumed a huge amount of spiritual power, as if he was withstanding a huge pressure. However, it was completely different from before. Yi Shiwen was only at the peak of the third realm back then, which was slightly weaker than the Alchemy Emperor now. However, he was already at the peak of the Emperor Lord now, so he naturally couldn't be compared to the past. Moreover, he now had close to 100 level 2 dragon veins in his body, which could be replenished at any time, so he didn't have to worry at all. He had been to the path of creation before, so he naturally wouldn't come here without any preparation. The Alchemy Emperor's expression was also solemn. He had also walked the path of creation, so he naturally understood the difficulties and dangers of the path of creation. The two of them glanced around and didn't find any other Emperor Lords nearby. It seemed like when they passed through the crack, they must have been separated into different places. The situation here is too strange, as if something is suppressing us. If you're not an Emperor Lord, you'll be courting death by coming here, the Alchemy Emperor said with a frown. Fellow Taoist Emperor, I have something to tell you. What is it? Yi Shiwen asked. The Alchemy Emperor turned around and said to Yi Shiwen, I think I have to leave for a period of time. I still have things to do in the path of creation, so I'll meet you when the time comes. Alright. Yi Shiwen nodded and wasn't surprised. Since the Alchemy Emperor knew that the path of creation was very dangerous, but he still insisted on participating, he must have his reasons. Therefore, all of this was actually within his expectations. After the Alchemy Emperor finished speaking, his entire figure disappeared into the void. Obviously, he was already prepared, so he quickly found the right direction and flew all the way. Yi Shiwen, on the other hand, walked all the way to the depths of the boiling celestial mist. Mysterious crystals could be seen everywhere. Initially, he didn't know what they were, but now, he could understand what they were. When he really understood, he couldn't help but gasp because he realized that in every crystal there seemed to be a withered universe. Endless universes were compressed into a crystal. Once it exploded, the horrifying might would severely injure or even kill a sovereign emperor. No wonder he felt so much danger out of nowhere. But why were these withered universes solidified here, and how many universes were buried in these crystals that could be seen everywhere? And who compressed these universes to this extent? There were too many unknowns. It could even be said that this was the greatest secret of the Fortune God dynasty, and no one knew what was contained in it. The deeper Yi Shiwen walked, the more he could feel the mysteries within. Yi Shiwen could even feel that time and space were different here, and even the laws were different from the outside world. Therefore, he felt unskilled, and couldn't even absorb any energy from heaven and earth for his own use. To an Emperor Lord, this was simply an impossible miracle. At his level of cultivation, regardless of whether it was light, dark, or evil, as long as it was energy, he could convert it for his own use. Be it demonic chi, spiritual chi, or any other spiritual chi, there was no difference. However, he couldn't obtain any replenishment here at all, which was obvious. Soon Yi Shiwen sensed the presence of many Emperor Lords. These Emperor Lords, like Yi Shiwen, were also heading towards the depths of the path of creation. What? A heavenly venerate's tomb was discovered inside? Suddenly, a rumor spread among the many Emperor Lords, and it was unknown who had discovered something ahead. Soon, the auras of these Emperor Lords began to accelerate towards the front. Yi Shiwen couldn't help but feel a little tempted. In the Fortune God dynasty, he had only heard about heavenly venerates, but he had never seen any other heavenly venerates besides Pantheon Venerate. Pantheon Venerate wasn't actually at his peak, and they couldn't be compared at all. His heart thumped, and he also rushed in that direction. Soon, a huge tomb appeared in front of Yi Shiwen. This tomb was formed by heaven and earth. Even in the path of creation, it was a miracle that it could form a tomb of its own. It should be known that when an Emperor Lord died, they could often form a huge tomb according to the local conditions, which was a sky burial. However, on this path of creation, Emperor Lords' corpses could be seen everywhere like cabbages on the roadside. This made this tomb even more extraordinary. Chapter 3267. In the path of creation, even the laws were different. Compared to the outside world, it was much more unfamiliar. Perhaps only heavenly venerables could condense a great tomb here. Their own laws could shield them from the obscure laws here and form a world of their own. Therefore, the great tomb of any heavenly venerables was, in fact, an independent world. The more Yi Shiwen walked, the more he could feel the strangeness of the laws here. He simply opened the mysterious space and began to analyze the laws here. After burning a total of 10 level 2 dragon veins, he barely managed to analyze some things, and it was these things that made him almost cry out in surprise. He discovered that the number and variety of laws here were far beyond his imagination. With his current cultivation, he knew all sorts of laws like the back of his hand. Compared to an Empyrean, the only thing he lacked was a deeper understanding of the laws. However, just the laws that were analyzed by the mysterious space contained many laws that he had never heard of or seen before. There were even many similar types of laws that overlapped but were different. For example, there were many types of fire attribute laws. As far as he knew, whether it was the most ordinary flames in the world or the flames of the Nanming mythical fire that he cultivated, although their appearances were different and their powers were worlds apart, they essentially followed the same fire attribute laws. However, there were many different types of fire attribute laws here. They were completely different cultivation systems, just like the martial arts of the humans and the magical powers of the demon race and the demon race. They were completely different. Moreover, there wasn't just one type of fire attribute laws here. There were many types of fire attribute laws here. Moreover, it wasn't just the fire attribute laws. Other laws were the same. Among them, Yi Shiwen also saw familiar laws that were inherited from the outside world. It was just that these laws were entangled with other laws and were difficult to distinguish. No wonder even an Emperor Lord is unable to absorb even the slightest bit of energy from the path of creation. Turns out that even the laws are different. Yi Shiwen suppressed the shock in his heart. It should be known that any world was composed of laws, rules, time, space, and many other elements. The laws were the foundation of the foundation. If even the laws changed, then an Emperor Lord would also lose his power. After all, an Emperor Lord was much more powerful than a quasi-emperor. To a large extent, they could use the laws of heaven and earth to crush their opponent. The degree of use of such laws was already at their fingertip. However, in this environment it was useless. It was like a human entering the demon realm. All kinds of senses were suppressed, and the laws in the demon realm were different from those in the human realm. The shallower one's cultivation was, the stronger the suppression would be. The principles of the devil world didn't have any effect on him when he stepped into the sovereign realm. In fact, he could even make use of them. Although he still couldn't compare with the devil kings of the devil world, he wasn't far off. However, there were too many different types of principles here. So, the Emperor Lords couldn't extract the principles from them. Yi Shiwen speculated that it wasn't just the Emperor Lords who couldn't extract the principles. Even the Heavenly Masters didn't have the ability to do so. Otherwise, there wouldn't be a saying that Heavenly Venerables were trapped here. How could a Heavenly Venerate be trapped here? Even with his current strength, he couldn't imagine how powerful an Empyrean would be trapped here. This was something that could be seen from Empyrean Emperor Primordius. Wasn't he also trapped here, capturing the passing Empyrean emperors as food to prolong his life? What exactly was this path of creation? Why was it so strange? The more Yi Shiwen thought about it, the more he couldn't figure it out. He knew too little. In fact, he felt that even a Heavenly Venerate might not know. He originally thought that he had some understanding of the path of creation. However, it seemed that he had been too naive. As he was lost in thought, he arrived at a huge tomb. In just a short period of time, this huge tomb had attracted over 100 Emperor Lords of all kinds and clans. Among these people, there were two leaders. They were facing each other from afar. One of them was faintly discernible, as if he was hidden in the void. If he was hidden in the void, no one would be able to discover him. That figure was extremely blurry. Yi Shiwen couldn't even make out his appearance. However, he was an ordinary Emperor Lord. Yi Shiwen saw through his disguise at first glance. It was a man with a translucent body and a cold expression. And in front of him was a corpse emperor. Yes, although he had concealed himself very well, not only did he not have the eerie and ghostly aura of an ordinary zombie, on the contrary, his body was flowing with flowing light, like a dazzling human-shaped sun. However, in reality this was a powerful corpse emperor. Both of them had already reached the 9th realm, and they were the strongest among the surrounding sovereign emperors. I'll say it again. This place is mine. No one is allowed to snatch it. Otherwise, you'll die. The translucent man said coldly. His words immediately caused a commotion among the many sovereign emperors. Although he was indeed the strongest, it was too ostentatious of him to restrict everyone from getting close. Void Emperor, although I admit that you are indeed very strong, if you want to monopolize this tomb of the heavenly monarch, you have to ask for our permission. The corpse monarch chuckled and looked at the cold man with a bright smile on his face. Yes, that's right. Void Emperor, you are too overbearing. Void Emperor, you are very strong. However, do you think that you can completely monopolize the tomb of the heavenly monarch by yourself? Void Emperor, don't go overboard. Overboard? So what if I'm overboard? If you have the ability, come out and confront me. Heaven-destroying corpse emperor, you don't have to incite these people to go against me. If you want to fight with me, then go ahead. The Void Emperor obviously didn't care about the threats from the crowd, and just said indifferently. Yi Shiwen looked from afar and felt that it was interesting. The others couldn't see it, but he could see that the heaven-destroying corpse emperor was weaker than the Void Emperor. Therefore, he was inciting the other Emperor Lords to go against the Void Emperor. Although both of them had only faintly revealed a bit of their strength, it was enough for Yi Shiwen, who was at the same level as them, to judge that the heaven-exterminating corpse emperor was very strong. He had probably entered the 9th realm for quite a long time. He was even stronger than Emperor Tian-Yi, and that Void Emperor should be close to, or even had already entered the peak of the 9th realm. This was why the heaven-exterminating corpse emperor had no choice but to provoke everyone to oppose him. With Yi Shiwen's current strength, he could suppress the heaven-exterminating corpse emperor without using the universe creation palm. His foundation was too deep. Although he had just broken through, he could already casually beat Emperor Tian-Yi, who had just entered the 9th realm. Facing the heaven-exterminating corpse emperor, who was already a veteran 9th realm existence, he could also suppress one. However, facing the Void Emperor, he was still slightly inferior. However, if he used the universe creation palm, he was confident that he could suppress and even defeat the Void Emperor. Although the Void Emperor gave him a strong feeling, he was ultimately not at the level of Yi Huang and Battle Emperor. They were at the peak of the 9th realm. In comparison, the Void Emperor could only be considered an ordinary person at the peak of the 9th realm. Even so, he could suppress hundreds of Emperor Lords by himself. His power was unparalleled. After estimating their strength, Yi Shiwen knew that although the two seemed strong, in reality, they didn't pose much of a threat to him. If the two of them joined forces, Yi Shiwen could escape unscathed. However, Yi Shiwen wasn't in a hurry to show himself. He didn't like to show off. Moreover, everyone's eyes were on the Void Emperor. However, to him, the real focus was on this Celestial Lord Great Curtain. He had seen many tombs formed after the fall of the Emperor Lords. Back then, before he became an emperor, he had gone through it. It could be said that it was a narrow escape, and the danger it contained still left a deep impression on him. And the Celestial Lord Great Tomb was even more terrifying than the Emperor Lord Great Tomb because it was formed naturally. The heavens wouldn't allow you to desecrate the corpses of these great figures. It was naturally not that easy for humans to go against the heavens. If the corpses of those emperor lords that Yi Shiwen had killed weren't taken away by Yi Shiwen, it wouldn't take long for an emperor lord great tomb to form naturally. At that time, who knew how many people would be attracted, and how many myths and legends would evolve? The entire great tomb looked like it was formed naturally. It looked like there was no gap at all. The only entrance was behind the Void Emperor. It was a large door. Although it wasn't open, one could faintly feel the dangerous aura that was spreading from it. It was completely intuition. However, Yi Shiwen was very confident in this intuition. Void Emperor, I'm not trying to provoke everyone. It's just that you've gone too far. No matter how strong you are, if you want to monopolize the Celestial Lord Great Tomb, I'm afraid it's still not enough. The heaven-exterminating corpse emperor only cared about smiling brightly. He didn't feel the slightest bit gloomy. In this world, strength speaks. I'm invincible in the western region, and I've never met a worthy opponent. Heaven-exterminating corpse emperor, since you're not satisfied, then let's fight. Even I have heard of your reputation in the southern region. The Void Emperor said faintly, but his eyes were staring at the heaven-exterminating corpse emperor. If that's the case, then there's no other way. The heaven-exterminating corpse emperor saw that the Void Emperor was determined to stand on the opposite side of everyone. He knew that he couldn't use a few words to make the Void Emperor step aside. Now that things had come to this, he could only fight. Although his strength was not as strong as the Void Emperor's, he wasn't afraid of him. The gap between the same realm wasn't that big. However, just as the battle between the two sides was about to break out, the sky above suddenly began to darken. A low whistling sound came. The heaven-exterminating corpse emperor's face suddenly changed when he saw this scene. He revealed a somewhat horrified expression. Chapter 3268. It wasn't just the immortal world emperor. Even the other emperor lords' expressions changed when they saw the changes in the sky. Yi Shiwen was no exception. This was because they already knew about the changes in the sky. It was a terrifying meteorological phenomenon on the path of creation called the creation storm. Many supersects, including the Fortune God dynasty, had records of this kind of storm. In the long history of the path of creation, this wasn't the first time a crack had appeared. There were emperor lords who had entered and left. Many common information about the path of creation was no longer a secret. The creation storm was one of them. It was said that this was one of the most terrifying meteorological phenomena on the path of creation. The physical body of an emperor lord was already the strongest and sturdiest object in the world. Apart from an emperor lord, there was no meteorological phenomenon in the fortune realm that could harm an emperor lord. However, this was the terrifying part of the creation storm. Even an emperor lord would not be able to withstand the blow of the creation storm. If it was an emperor lord who had just entered the emperor lord realm, he would probably be able to withstand it for a short while. After that, his bones and flesh would scatter and his spirit would be completely destroyed. Given Yi Shiwen's realm, he would naturally be able to withstand it for a long time. Even so, he was unwilling to be drawn into the creation storm. It was simply like a legendary natural disaster. This storm was mixed with endless destructive power of the nomological laws. If a tiny bit of it leaked into the fortune realm, it could destroy countless living beings. In serious cases, it might even cause one of the 4 domains of the Fortune God dynasty to collapse. This was just one of the meteorological phenomena on the path of creation. Yi Shiwen hadn't paid much attention to it at first. When he had first arrived on the path of creation, he had felt that the nomological laws were obscure and he couldn't borrow any power. However, he had never encountered such a terrifying meteorological phenomenon. Now he knew that he was really lucky that he hadn't encountered it. He could clearly feel that the wind attribute nomological laws in the air had become active. This wasn't much at first, But what was truly terrifying was that there were too many types of wind attribute nomological laws that had become active. Yi Shiwen had only understood one of them. Many different wind attribute nomological laws condensed and intertwined together. The terrifying power that erupted was simply terrifying. Perhaps only those at the heavenly venerate realm would be able to resist it. As for how far they could resist it, he didn't know. However, he reckoned that they should be able to resist it effectively. Otherwise, wouldn't those heavenly venerates trapped here have all died? He didn't know whether the other Empyreans were dead or not, but he was certain that Emperor Primordius was still alive. Since this was the case, it meant that Empyreans had a way to resist. Take the heavenly exalted tomb, for example. Why were the corpses of emperors scattered everywhere like cabbages on the side of the road? Yet, the heavenly exalted tomb was able to remain unscathed despite the wind and rain? Perhaps it had something to do with the laws that had taken form. Oh no, the storm of fortune is about to take shape. With such a large area, I'm afraid it's impossible for us to escape the storm of fortune immediately. Some of the imperial emperors immediately saw the creation storm rapidly taking shape in the sky. This speed was enough to make one despair. They could even feel their robes fluttering. This was a sign that the storm was about to take shape. As far as they could see, the storm of fortune was about to take shape. There was no chance for them to escape at all. The only way is to enter the heavenly exalted tomb immediately. Otherwise, we will die without a doubt. An imperial emperor immediately shouted. Yi Shiwen wasn't the only one who could see the possibility of survival. Many people could also see that only by hiding in the heavenly exalted tomb could they possibly escape. Everyone looked at the Void Emperor. He was the one who had stopped everyone from entering the heavenly exalted tomb. Void Emperor, forget about what happened just now. If you still dare to stop us from entering, then don't blame us for being impolite. Even if we die, we will drag you down with us. An imperial emperor said without any trace of politeness. They had already been forced to this point. It was almost as if they would die if they didn't enter. In that case, there was no point in being afraid. Previously, whether they entered the heavenly exalted tomb or not was only related to whether they could obtain some of the benefits left behind by the heavenly exalted. It wasn't fatal, and there was no loss even if they couldn't obtain it. But now, if they couldn't enter, only death awaited them. At this point, how could they still retreat? Since they were going to die anyway, they might as well take the risk and drag the Void Emperor down with them. Although everyone was afraid of the Void Emperor's power, they had the determination to do so. No one had reached their current position through luck. Yi Shiwen was hiding in the dark. He had also quietly raised his martial power to the peak. He wouldn't mind killing the Void Emperor if he didn't give in. After all, it was a matter of life and death. So, he naturally didn't care about hiding his strength. Fortunately, the Void Emperor also knew that he couldn't offend the public. The current situation was completely different from before. If he still dared to stand in front of everyone now, then it was purely courting death. But even if I step aside, can you open the door of the heavenly exalted tomb? The Void Emperor said. At this time, everyone finally noticed that this heavenly exalted tomb still had a door. It wasn't a city gate that allowed everyone to walk back and forth. Whatever, let's fight and fight our way in. I don't believe that with so many of us, we still can't fight our way into the heavenly exalted tomb. A sovereign emperor roared. Obviously, he wasn't willing to be captured without a fight. This sentence immediately resonated with many sovereign emperors. Rather than waiting for death here, it was better to fight to the death. This was also what they were thinking. Although they had already sensed that there was no way to replenish their consumption here, and every bit of consumption was a bit of consumption, how could they care so much at this time? Yes, let's fight. Let's attack together, and we might have a chance of survival. The Heaven Exterminating Corpse Emperor took the lead and stepped forward. His aura instantly surged out and shot up into the sky. Around him, an incomparably terrifying aura was awakened. Wherever his aura passed, it almost turned the entire world into a kingdom of death. At this time, he truly displayed the unique magical power that belonged to the Corpse Emperor. Boom! 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 At this time, many sovereign emperors didn't dare to hold back and quickly attacked. Yi Shiwen and the Void Emperor also attacked at this time. With so many sovereign emperors attacking at the same time, countless laws began to appear in the sky. The power of the laws that were originally suppressed in this world was also awakened. Among the endless laws, the laws that were of the same system as the Fortune Realm were awakened one after another, and then happily appeared in front of everyone. Many of the laws formed divine chains, interweaving in the sky to form a divine web. At the same time, an unimaginably dense and heavy aura was also emitted from the heavenly exalted tomb. It was vast and mighty, almost completely suppressing everyone's power. This was the terror of the heavenly exalted tomb. Even if they had fallen, they could contend with everyone just by relying on their remaining power. At that moment, everyone was finally unable to hold themselves back anymore. Over 100 attacks shot out in a grand manner. Any one of them could pierce through a world and grab the sun, moon, and stars. All of the attacks converged together, forming a terrifying river that viciously smashed down on the gate. Boom! A massive rumbling sound could be heard as the great tomb of the Celestial shook violently. At the same time, a magical symbol of the 8 trigrams appeared on the surface of the tomb, forming an enormous spell formation that protected the entrance. The spell formation spun violently under the onslaught of everyone's attacks, and in the blink of an eye, it was completely nullified. However, even so, the sharp-eyed people still noticed that this formation had dimmed a lot under everyone's attacks. Again, it's working! The heaven-exterminating Corpse Emperor roared, and took the lead to attack again. Countless corpse auras surged out and formed corpse dragons in the sky. They bared their fangs and brandished their claws, and they fought to be the first to collide with the door. At the same time, everyone also attacked together and hurriedly attacked the formation. Boom! 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 In just a short period of time, everyone had attacked hundreds and thousands of times. The joint attack of these sovereign emperors had finally produced a shocking effect. Crack! With a loud roar, the huge formation finally couldn't rotate anymore and shattered. Then, the door of the heavenly exalted tomb finally opened a little. Inside, a large amount of light rain flew out, forming rays of light that danced in the sky. Great, it's finally open! Everyone could not help but feel that they had escaped from death. The storm of creation outside had already taken shape. They had already felt that their protective gang chi had been blown into pieces the moment the storm of creation took shape, disappearing without a trace. It was not enough to be used at all. Moreover, many people had already begun to scream. Under the storm of creation, their bodies turned into clouds of blood rain and scattered. Damn, this door is going to close. Everyone saw that the door had opened a little, but it was only a little bit. It was about to close again. How could they care so much? Originally, it had only opened a little bit. Everyone hurriedly flew in, not daring to stay at all. In just a moment, the entire door finally opened a little bit and closed with a loud bang. However, there were still more than 10 people who didn't have time to come in and were locked outside. They were almost the weakest in this group, so they couldn't snatch the treasure away from the others and were locked outside. At this time, they could vaguely hear their screams rising and falling. It was very spectacular, and it only dissipated after a long time. At this time, everyone was in the mood to check where they were. Chapter 3269. After hearing the screams outside, everyone felt a lingering fear in their hearts. The emperors who stayed outside and did not hurry in were obviously blown to death. Everyone was well aware of the horror of this creation storm, so they naturally understood how terrifying it was. The Void Emperor's gaze shuttled through the void, but from the corner of his eyes, his gaze fell on a green figure. He noticed that at the moment of entering, although this person was at the back of the line, when he came in, he was second only to himself. He was even slightly faster than the Immortal World Emperor. What an impressive movement technique! The Immortal World Emperor obviously also noticed Yi Shiwen's existence, but he did not say anything, because this was not the time to care about such things. In their minds, the two were already thinking about the identity of this person. Unfortunately, one of them was in the southern region, and the other was in the western region. Neither was in the eastern region, so they did not know much about Yi Shiwen. Moreover, Yi Shiwen's rise to power was too short. For an emperor's long life, it was like sleeping for a night, and waking up only to find a top expert that they did not know. Naturally, they could not figure out anything. Although they were strong, their forces were not so strong that they could casually know about the eastern region, especially when they had never actually cared about it. Yi Shiwen naturally also noticed the gazes of the two, but he did not take it to heart. Although he did not intend to go all out for the time being, since he was going to perform, then he should perform a little bit, lest others look down on him. His gaze also began to look around. After the entrance of the tomb, everywhere was pitch black, and there was not even a bit of light. Even the most powerful cultivator would find it difficult to see things here, but for the emperors, this was not a problem at all. In fact, they only muttered, "Let there be light," and in an instant, the entire space was filled with an inexplicable light. There was no source of light, but the entire space was lit up. However, this light only lasted for a moment, and quickly extinguished. Everyone's expression suddenly became solemn. This light source was suppressed by the laws, or rather, this space did not allow light to exist at all. This kind of environment was quite rare. Right at this moment, a shrill cry suddenly sounded out. Everyone hurriedly looked over and saw an imperial monarch retreating repeatedly. A large piece of flesh had been clawed out of his chest, and he looked to be drenched in blood. It was an extremely terrifying sight. Many people couldn't help but shudder when they saw this scene. "There's something in the dark, everyone be careful." Many people were immediately on tenterhooks. A sovereign emperor's physical body, even the weakest of them, was extremely tough. Yet, a large piece of flesh had been ripped off by a casual grab from a sovereign emperor's body. What a ruthless method! Immediately, everyone heard the sound of chewing, which was even more terrifying in the darkness. There were very few people who could remain calm under such circumstances, and Yi Shiwen was one of them. When he looked over, he could only see a black shadow. It wasn't that his eyesight wasn't good enough. With his current cultivation, he could see the 9 heavens and the underworld. Nothing could hide from him. However, there was a law on the black shadow that was concealing his figure, making it impossible for his eyes to see through it. Interesting! Right at this moment, another loud roar resounded, and then a huge hand of darkness instantly grabbed towards one of the imperial monarchs in the crowd. The imperial lord reacted extremely quickly, slashing down with a backhand slash. Clang! It was an extremely loud sound of metal colliding, and there were even a few sparks in the darkness. It appeared in an instant and vanished without a trace in an instant. The sword did not manage to sever the hand, but the force of the hand did not diminish. It forcibly broke through the sovereign monarch's defenses, and with a single claw, it pierced through the sovereign monarch's chest, digging out his heart. Blood immediately spurted out. Everything was so bloody. In just an instant, a formidable imperial lord had been heavily injured. The imperial lord retreated repeatedly. Although his heart had been clawed out, it wasn't a hopeless situation for him. Even so, he was still heavily injured. The imperial lord's strength was boundless, but his physical body wasn't boundlessly powerful. However, all the imperial lords just watched coldly, and none of them had any intention of making a move. Because everyone knew very well that there was another layer of identity between them, and that was the identity of competitors. Because of the existence of the creation storm in the outside world, they could still join forces. But there was no need for that here. Ah! Then, there was another scream, and another Imperial Lord's leg was clawed off. Then, he was dragged into the darkness and eaten. Brother Void Emperor, why don't we join forces to finish off this beast? Although he can't pose any threat to us, if this continues, time will also be wasted. At this time, the heaven-destroying Corpse King couldn't help but say. Void Emperor's expression was solemn, and then he nodded. Although he wasn't afraid, it wasn't his intention to be trapped here. He wanted to see what was in the Celestial Master's tomb. In the blink of an eye, the heaven-exterminating Corpse Emperor made his move. His hand emitted a dazzling radiance that was as dazzling as the sun. Although it was only for an instant, it was enough for everyone. Everyone could clearly see that it was a black shadow. The black shadow was majestic, and it had 2 legs and 4 arms. As for what it looked like, it was impossible to see clearly. However, from its appearance, it could be seen that it was a ferocious creature because its entire body was emitting a ferocious aura. Bastard, die for me! The heaven-destroying Corpse King's figure flickered, and he approached the black shadow and slapped it with his palm. The black shadow's 4 hands attacked at the same time, and its 4 claws almost formed a large net, which fiercely attacked in the direction of the heaven-destroying Corpse King. Boom! The heaven-extermination Corpse King slapped the 4 claws away with a single palm strike, causing an ear-piercing sound to erupt. At this moment, he displayed his incomparably powerful physical cultivation. Just now, the black shadow had used its arms and doctrine weapon to resist. However, in the confrontation with the heaven-destroying Corpse King, it was at a disadvantage and instantly retreated. In this path of creation, it was almost 10 times or even 100 times more difficult than usual to use the nomological laws. It was simply not possible to use it under ordinary circumstances. Therefore, at this time, an Imperial Lord with a strong physical body had a big advantage. This was also the reason why the heaven-destroying Corpse King dared to take the lead in contending with him, even though his cultivation was clearly inferior to the Void Emperor's. As soon as the black shadow attacked, it was immediately slapped away. It hurriedly retreated, trying to escape from the range of the heaven-destroying Corpse King's control. However, when it just took a step forward, the Void Emperor had already appeared in front of it. The Void Emperor slapped with his big hand, and everything in front of it was turned into nothingness. This terrifying ability was almost invincible. Whether it was time, space, or all the nomological laws, they were nothing in the face of nothingness. The black shadow had just escaped from the attack range of the heaven-destroying Corpse King, but instantly fell into the attack range of the Void Emperor. Its 2 arms moved forward to resist, but were instantly turned into nothingness. The black shadow immediately screamed, and hurriedly rushed in another direction. The direction he chose was none other than the direction where Yi Shiwen was. Yi Shiwen originally did not intend to attack, but he had to do so at this time. This was because he could also see that, rather than saying that the black shadow was escaping towards him, it would be better to say that the black shadow was being chased here. And the 2 people seemed to have a tacit understanding in an instant to block all the black shadow's escape routes, and forced him towards Yi Shiwen's direction. Boom! Yi Shiwen's clothes fluttered even though there was no wind. Since the 2 people had the intention to test him, he naturally would not be afraid to attack. He did not use any martial arts, but just a simple punch. Bang! The black shadow did not expect that the guy in front of him, who looked gentle and weak, was actually a super killing machine. With a punch, his entire figure was shrouded in it. The black shadow raised its remaining 2 arms to resist, but it could only resist for a moment. Then, it was completely smashed into pieces and disappeared in an instant. Then, the momentum of Yi Shiwen's fist didn't reduce, and directly bombarded the black shadow into powder. All of this took a long time to describe, but in fact, it was only a moment. At this time, everyone finally recovered. They did not know when such a terrifying existence had appeared among them. Moreover, it was hidden. If it was not for the attack just now, who would know that this seemingly gentle and weak guy was actually so terrifying? He looked even more terrifying than the heaven-destroying Corpse King. And at this time, the heaven-destroying Corpse King slowly walked over, and said, "Friend, your skills are really hidden. It's just a small trick. It's nothing at all. It's a disgrace, a disgrace," Yi Shiwen just said lightly. He naturally understood what the other party meant by hidden. The Void Emperor just snorted coldly and did not say anything. Although he was also a little afraid of Yi Shiwen's method of hiding his strength, he also knew that it was really too stupid to go against an expert of the same level at this juncture. Everyone was shocked by Yi Shiwen's amazing strength, but only he knew that the Black Shadow did not have a physical body at all. It was just that the amazing performance of being able to resist a Taoist tool with his bare hands made everyone mistakenly think that not only did he have a physical body, but his physical cultivation was also extremely tyrannical. However, in fact, Yi Shiwen discovered that it was just an illusion when they fought. Yi Shiwen was lost in his thoughts when everyone rushed forward one after another. Chapter 3270. Yi Shiwen kept thinking. Although he didn't know the origin of this black shadow, it was indeed very amazing that it could resist a Dao tool with bare hands even without a physical body. It should be covering its body with divine sense to resist a Dao tool. Although this method seemed simple, it actually had very high requirements for the spirit of an Emperor Lord. Only the tyrannical strength of one's divine sense could reach an earth-shattering level. Even the current Yi Shiwen was sure that he could resist a Dao tool with his bare hands. However, he didn't dare to say that he could use his divine sense to block a Dao tool. This black shadow was by no means an ordinary person. It must have a great background. Unfortunately, because it didn't have a physical body, it would dissipate in one blow. It couldn't even resist Yi Shiwen's attack. After breaking that layer of divine sense, it was even weaker than an ordinary Emperor Lord. It just took advantage of the fact that everyone didn't understand its characteristics to succeed. Everyone had already moved forward quickly. Yi Shiwen naturally couldn't fall behind, so he quickly followed them. Soon, they entered a hall. Here, there was no suppression of the law like before. Everyone could see clearly. From afar, one could see that the entire hall was filled with stone statues. Every single statue was vivid and lifelike, and each of them carried a terrifying might that could dominate the world. Could it be this is actually an Emperor Lord? An Emperor-level creature couldn't help but say. After entering this realm, he naturally understood everything very well. In his opinion, these stone statues actually had a bit of the might and elegance of an Emperor Lord. It can't be true. Others also felt it, but they still felt it was unbelievable. But soon, they had to believe it because these stone statues actually came to life. Moreover, each stone statue turned into a peerless figure, as if an Emperor Lord had awakened from a deep sleep. Everyone sucked in a breath of cold air. There were originally more than 100 of them, but a portion of them were left outside the door. There were only a few dozen of them in total. However, there were at least 200 to 300 stone statues in this hall. If all of them were awakened at the same time, how terrifying would the scene be? This isn't an Emperor Lord, but it's still very terrifying. It should be the will of the past Emperor Lords pulled out from the river of time by the heavenly Tao to serve as a guard. The heaven-exterminating corpse Emperor seemed to have thought of something and hurriedly said, "Everyone, don't underestimate these Emperor Lords' wills. With the support of the heavenly Tao, they can display 100% of their previous body's strength. When many people heard this, they could not help but suck in a breath of cold air. Hundreds of sovereign emperors had awakened together. To them, this was no different from a land of death. It was practically forcing them into a dead end. At the same time, a question arose in the hearts of many. Exactly who was buried here? He was actually able to make the Heaven Tao pull out the wills of so many imperial monarchs from the river of time to guard his tomb. Because the Emperor Lord had already fused with the heavenly Tao, even if he died, there would still be an imprint left behind in the endless void. It was just that ordinary people had no way of retrieving them from the boundless void. The only one who could do it was the legendary supreme heavenly Tao that treated all things as straw dogs. Yi Shiwen's expression also became solemn. Hundreds of emperor lords were even more terrifying than tens of thousands of quasi-emperors. Even with his cultivation, it was a little difficult for two fists to fight against four hands. Fortunately, they were not fighting alone. He also had the same doubt in his heart. He was afraid that the person buried here was not an ordinary heavenly lord. However, it was precisely because of this that he became more confident. The more it was like this, the more likely it was that he would find something good. And the others obviously had the same thoughts as him. They also wanted to obtain the good things inside. How could they not be interested in the things left behind by the Heavenly Lord after his death? Just as everyone was struggling with their thoughts, these stone statues came to life one by one. Crack, crack, crack. These stone statues seemed to be molting. They began to peel off layer by layer, revealing their true appearance. Hundreds of emperor lords instantly moved. What a spectacular scene it was! Hundreds of stone statues of emperor lords, as well as Yi Shiwen and the other genuine emperor lords, all erupted into a shocking battle. The entire scene was perhaps a scene that was rarely seen in countless years. On this path of creation, everyone's cultivation was restricted. It was impossible for them to grasp the sun, moon, pluck the stars from the sky, and crush countless worlds with a stomp. They could only rely on their own strength to fight. Even so, it was still extremely terrifying. Although the area that everyone could affect now was only nearby, and it was far less terrifying than in the outside world, in reality, in terms of real damage, it was much higher. Everyone had to deal with 2 or 3 stone statues of Emperor Lords. Although these were only the thoughts of the Emperor Lords that had been awakened from the river of time, and they did not have too many memories from when they were alive, they still retained their fighting instincts from when they were alive. In terms of fighting ability, they were not too far off from Yi Shiwen and the others. With the support of the heavenly Tao, they could also use all kinds of technique. Therefore, once they came up, everyone was immediately at a disadvantage. And Yi Shiwen was instantly surrounded by several Emperor Lords. When they fought just now, he realized that these Emperor Lords were a little strange. This was because whether it was the way they attacked, or the magical powers and martial arts that they displayed, they were completely different from what Yi Shiwen knew. It was not completely different because they were of different races. On the contrary, he felt that they were of a completely different system, a completely different matter. Yi Shiwen had never heard of or seen some of the methods of using and mastering the nomological laws. They did not seem like the Emperor Lords of the creation realm. However, these Emperor Lords were pulled out from the long river of history by the heavenly Tao. No one would forget which era they were from. In reality, Yi Shiwen's understanding of the creation god dynasty was quite limited. Naturally, he could not make a more accurate judgment. It was just that this doubt and thought was ultimately planted in his heart. Yi Shiwen resisted while his eyes fell on the Heaven Extermination Corps Emperor and the Void Emperor. He saw that the two of them were fighting while flying towards the other side of the hall. Yi Shiwen almost immediately understood their plan. They planned to abandon everyone else and directly break through this line of defense of the Stone Emperor Lords. As for the others, they had to stay behind and delay the footsteps of these stone emperor lords for the two of them. The others also reacted very quickly. They almost immediately understood what was going on and started cursing. However, it was useless. Under the siege of many stone emperor lords, they instantly fell into a disadvantageous position. They could only fight while retreating, but there was nothing they could do. After all, they were not as tyrannical as the Heaven Extermination Corps Emperor and the Void Emperor, who could kill their way through the entire line of defense alone. Of course, it was also because everyone had blocked most of the Stone Emperor Lords for them. Otherwise, if they were surrounded by so many Emperor Lords at the same time, even if they did not die, they would still lose a layer of skin. It was impossible for them to break through so easily. However, it was useless to just understand this because they had no way to stop the Heaven Extermination Corps Emperor and the Void Emperor. Fight. Let's retreat. Don't let them benefit. Someone shouted. His words immediately resonated with many people. Even if they couldn't stop them, at the very least, they wouldn't have to do all the work for them. At this moment, another figure suddenly appeared and directly chased after the Heaven Extermination Corps Emperor and the Void Emperor. Who else could it be but Yi Shiwen? Those Emperor Lords who were pouncing on him could not stop him at all. If Yi Shiwen only wanted to get rid of them, he would need some time even if he encountered the thoughts of these fearless Emperor Lords. However, if he only wanted to make them retreat, it would be much easier. Soon, the Heaven Extermination Corps Emperor and the Void Emperor had already passed through the blockade of hundreds of Stone Emperor Lords. However, they soon saw Yi Shiwen following closely behind them. Although they were unhappy, they were not surprised. From the way they eliminated the Black Shadow just now, they could see that Yi Shiwen was not an ordinary person. He was definitely comparable to them. For them, the weak were not enough. However, the strong could become temporary companions. At least before they saw the tomb of the Celestial Master, they could become companions. After the three of them broke free from the seal of the Sovereign Emperors, they hurriedly circulated their movement techniques and flew to the other side of the hall. The hall was huge, but no matter how big it was nothing for the Sovereign Emperors. However, to their surprise, the three of them had to fly for quite a while before finally reaching the other side of the hall. At the other end of the hall, there were countless passageways in front of the trio. Each passageway led to a different place. No one knew which passageway led to the tomb of the Heavenly Venerate. The three of them stopped almost at the same time and began to calculate. The entire tomb was suppressed by the Celestial Master's luck. Even with the cultivation of the three of them, it was difficult to calculate anything. However, with the cultivation of the three of them, it was still possible to calculate good or bad luck. Yi Shiwen's brain was like a supercomputer, and it began to calculate at a very fast speed. He had calculated every passage, and found that some passages were full of deathly energy. So, he had quickly eliminated all of them. After a while, Yi Shiwen finally opened his eyes. His gaze directly locked on one of the passages. He did not care what the other two chose. He immediately stepped out and turned into a stream of light. He flew into this passage. Chapter 3271. The passageway extended endlessly, and darkness permeated every corner of the space. The entire passageway looked extremely long, with no end in sight. However, as Yi Shiwen flew all the way, he realized that he had yet to reach the end. It should be known that he could fly tens of millions of miles in a second if he flew at full speed. When he looked from the outside, although this Celestial Master's tomb was huge, it was not as big as a world. Space has been folded? After Yi Shiwen calmed down, he quickly reacted. This was just like entering an illusory array, and was constantly going around in circles in one place. But in reality, it was not like that, because this was a real space that had been folded and transformed, so no matter how he flew, he could not fly out. It was not like an illusion array that was used to confuse people's eyes. The entire space folding could be said to be natural, and there was not a trace of artificial carving. It was extremely difficult to crack. However, for an emperor lord who had cultivated to Yi Shiwen's level, although it was a little troublesome, it was not a big deal. It only took him a few seconds to calculate the node, pass through the node, and reach the end of the passageway. The darkness completely retreated behind him after he reached the end of this endless passage. He arrived in an ethereal space. The entire space looked like a fairyland. There were all kinds of exotic flowers and grasses everywhere. Heavenly treasures were growing all over the ground. However, no one had come to collect these treasures for so many years. He didn't know whether these treasures were millions of years old or tens of millions of years old. Even in the Fortune Divine dynasty, 10,000 years old natural treasures were not considered rare, but if it was a million years old natural treasure, even an emperor lord would have to raise his eyebrows, not to mention here, 10 million years old natural treasures could be found everywhere. If it was not for the omnipresent suppression of the laws of heaven and earth, these heavenly treasures of 10 million years old would have already taken human form, and it would not be strange for them to cultivate to the emperor lord realm. Because here, they simply did not have any natural enemies, and could grow freely, but because of this, these laws existed to suppress their growth. As the saying goes, everything is decided by heaven, and the heavenly Tao also maintained balance. Yi Shiwen was also very tempted. If all the heavenly treasures in the entire space were sold, the price might be more than dozens of level 2 dragon veins. Even if they were not sold, they could be moved to Mount Buzhou in the future and become the foundation of human race. With this, the foundation of the human race would definitely leap from the middle of the eastern domain to the top of the eastern domain overnight. Any cultivator who wanted to cultivate could not do without resources. This was especially so for peak experts. Ordinary resources could not support them at all. However, these resources were sufficient to nurture several sovereign emperors. Of course, this was only in terms of resources. The appearance of a sovereign emperor wasn't just about resources. It also required talent, fortuitous encounters, and many other factors. However, what caught his attention the most was the fact that so many heavenly treasures could be produced in such a small area. In fact, there were even many heavenly treasures at the 10 million years old level. How could he not be suspicious? These heavenly treasures could not grow out of thin air. One must know that any one of these million-years-old heavenly treasures could turn millions of miles into a desert with it as the center, because all the spiritual energy in this land had been absorbed by it. Under such circumstances, no other heavenly treasures were allowed to grow at all. What was buried under this space? Thinking of this, Yi Shiwen couldn't help but suddenly open his double pupils. He looked carefully and saw that the entire space was wrapped up by layers of arrays, and there seemed to be some terrible fierce beasts hiding in the array at the bottom. Some terrible existence was lurking in the array. For a while, Yi Shiwen could not see through it with his double pupils. It seemed that it was a kind of array that even he had never seen before, suppressing the terrifying existence in it. And then Yi Shiwen saw that above the sky there was a figure sitting cross-legged, as if he was meditating. He saw that it was a middle-aged man with a handsome face and fair skin. His body exuded a faint coercion, and countless laws and rules were revolving around him. As if he was the only king between heaven and earth, the greatest ruler between heaven and earth. This is the Celestial Master? Yi Shiwen suddenly realized that this was perhaps the legendary Lord of the Heavens. And he had transformed into this huge tomb after he had fallen. Although the coercion on his body was not strong, it gave Yi Shiwen an extremely dangerous feeling. Yi Shiwen had just stretched out his hand, and it immediately attracted the endless laws and rules to counterattack. These laws and rules pounced on him like a pack of wolves. Blood dripped down drop by drop, falling on the grass under his feet. He did not know what kind of grass it was, but it could even absorb the blood of the sovereign emperor in an instant. What a strong reaction! Yi Shiwen narrowed his eyes. Even if it was a dead celestial master, he was afraid that he would not be able to touch him. It was just a test, and his palm had become a bloody mess. One must know that he was someone who could compete with Dao tools without the slightest injury. However, his palm had been cut by this celestial master's law. Although it was not very serious, he knew that if he made any further moves, he was afraid that he would face a more serious counterattack. It was as if it was warning him not to blaspheme. What a powerful heavenly master! What a powerful person! But these principles… Yi Shiwen keenly discovered that these principles were completely different from the principles of the system that he knew. In fact, they seemed to be completely different from the principles of the system that he knew. They looked similar, but they were in fact a completely different system. What the hell is this system? Yi Shiwen narrowed his eyes. Why is it completely different from the current system? If the laws of this system really existed a long time ago, then where did they flourish? Do they still exist today? Countless thoughts emerged in Yi Shiwen's mind. Previously, when he saw so many completely different laws entangled together outside, he had such a guess, but he had no evidence. The existence of this celestial master provided solid evidence that such a system indeed existed in the past, and it was once very popular. Otherwise, this celestial master would not exist. As far as he knew, whether it was the fortune realm or other worlds like the myriad heavens, although the cultivation system was different, the laws and rules that they followed were completely the same. Even a celestial master could not create their own set of laws and rules. It was simply unrealistic. Although he did not know whether the legendary Lord of Fortune realm had such an ability, the celestial master certainly did not. A dreadful guess flashed in Yi Shiwen's heart. However, he immediately suppressed this guess because he only hoped that it wasn't true. After all, it would be the most dreadful truth in countless years if that guess was true. No matter who this celestial master is, I will first collect all these heavenly treasures. Yi Shiwen took a step forward and directly stretched out his big hand, which turned into a big hand that covered the entire space, suddenly grabbing towards those heavenly treasures. He wanted to grab a piece of the entire land and transplant all these heavenly treasures into his inner space. These heavenly treasures had a spiritual nature. Although they hadn't given birth to spiritual wisdom, they could still sense that a great change was about to happen. So, they quickly tried to dodge. However, no matter how hard they tried to dodge, they couldn't catch up with Yi Shiwen's speed in this space. Moreover, in Yi Shiwen's eyes, their resistance was just a ridiculous action. In a moment, they were all captured by Yi Shiwen. Ordinary Emperor Lords would have to deal with these heavenly treasures of the 10 million years level, but Yi Shiwen was different. With his skill, he could crush them. After a while, the entire land and the entire space was scraped by Yi Shiwen. At this time, Yi Shiwen finally saw clearly what was trapped under the layers of arrays. It was a broken giant dragon. The scales on its body were distinct, and its eyes flickered with an ominous light. However, wounds could be seen all over its body. There were saber wounds and sword wounds. It seemed that it had experienced a great battle. This is King-level dragon vein. Yi Shiwen's eyes immediately widened, because he instantly discovered that this was not a giant dragon at all, but a dragon vein, just a dragon vein that was about to transform into a real dragon. When the dragon vein developed like this, it was almost no different from a real dragon, and even looked like the legendary 9-clawed ancestral dragon, with a terrible power, much more terrifying than ordinary Emperor Lords. Even now, Yi Shiwen suspected that the ancestral dragon was actually a dragon vein that had transformed into a real dragon. Otherwise, the ancestral dragon would never have heard of the existence of the dragon group. Not only in the heavens, but in the fortune realm, there were also dragon veins everywhere. It was unlikely that there was no connection between the two. Yi Shiwen had seen the portrait of the ancestral dragon before. Back then, he had entered the ancestral dragon's portrait to gain enlightenment. Although that portrait could not even draw 1/10 of the ancestral dragon's true heroic appearance, it was enough for Yi Shiwen to get a glimpse of it. And this king-level dragon vein was even more powerful than the ancestral dragon, and this was still in a broken state. It was unknown how terrifying it would be in its true peak state. Sitting on a king-level dragon vein, who is this heavenly master? Even though Yi Shiwen had never come into contact with an Empyrean, he knew that an ordinary Empyrean could only use a rank 1 dragon vein at most. King-grade dragon veins were considered legendary in the long history of the Fortune God dynasty, and they rarely appeared in public. And everyone knew that under the Fortune divine capital, there was a king-level dragon vein suppressing the destiny of the Fortune God dynasty. Chapter 3272. Even with the power of the Fortune God dynasty, they still had to use the king-level dragon vein to suppress the destiny. One could imagine the preciousness of the king-level dragon vein. Even though this half-broken king-rank dragon vein couldn't be compared to the king-rank dragon vein used to suppress the Fortune divine dynasty, it was still a huge fortune for an individual. No wonder it can produce so many treasures. It must be a king-level dragon vein. Yi Shiwen's eyes suddenly lit up. However, it would not be easy to take out this king-level dragon vein. Yi Shiwen scanned the arrays with his divine thoughts and found that they were completely destroyed. These arrays had extremely strong attack power, just like the rules and principles around the Heavenly Master. They were completely different from the ones that Yi Shiwen had now. Forget it, I'll give it a try first. I'm afraid the others will arrive in a while. Yi Shiwen immediately decided to take action. As the saying went, a long night is fraught with dreams. Overturning the sky seal. Yi Shiwen casually formed a seal of the overturning the sky seal. It grew bigger and bigger like Mount Tai, and then it fell fiercely into the layers of arrays below. Boom! With a loud bang, layers of ripples emerged, like the waves on the surface of the water. The terrifying impact turned into ripples and dissipated. With Yi Shiwen's strength, a casual punch could penetrate a world, and it was easy for him to cut stars with the mustard blade. However, he could only break one array now. It's fine if there's no one, but I'm afraid they'll be here soon. They won't give me enough time at all. Yi Shiwen immediately judged that this array could not be broken in a short period of time. Immediately, a plan came to his mind. Immediately, he stopped destroying the formations. Instead, he found a corner, sat down cross-legged, and counted the heaven and earth treasures that he had taken away, especially the heaven and earth treasures that were tens of millions of years old. Even for him now, they would be of great benefit. In the future, he could make friends with alchemy emperors to concoct pills for him. Concocting pills that could rapidly increase his cultivation was the most important thing. He looked at the unparalleled existence floating in the sky. Many laws floated in the sky and patrolled around him like guards protecting the Son of Heaven. It was a completely different system. Under his urging, the mysterious space in his body quickly began to operate and began to analyze these completely different law systems. In the beginning, it was very difficult for Yi Shiwen to analyze it. It was completely different from any other system that he knew. However, as time passed, he slowly opened up a new situation. Although his understanding of this law was still very low, but it was still a very good start for him. However, before he could further analyze the mysteries contained within these laws, a figure suddenly leaped out from the numerous passageways. He seemed to be in a rather sorry state, and there were even some traces of blood on his body. That person was none other than the Void Emperor. Clearly, he had also gone through a huge battle in the passageway. The Void Emperor looked a little bad when he saw Yi Shiwen. When he was at his most sorry state, Yi Shiwen had seen it. He almost had an impulse to kill Yi Shiwen. Of course, that was only a momentary thought. He knew that Yi Shiwen was by no means an ordinary person. It could be seen from the fact that Yi Shiwen could come in so much earlier than him. Although this was also because he had been ambushed in the passageway, every path was chosen by himself. Before he entered, he had also calculated it. In the end, he still encountered such a serious ambush. This was enough to prove that Yi Shiwen was far better than him in the way of calculation, although this was not his strength. He hurriedly came to the opposite side of Yi Shiwen and sat down cross-legged to heal his injuries. In just a moment, he had already recovered to his peak, and his original cold expression was restored. At this time, he also noticed the meditating figure floating above the entire huge space. He also keenly judged that it should be the Heavenly Master. And what really made him overjoyed was the king-level dragon vein that was suppressed by layers of arrays underground. At the same time, he also made the same judgment as Yi Shiwen. Although it was a broken king-level dragon vein, it was still an unimaginably huge wealth. However, he immediately became vigilant because Yi Shiwen had come in much earlier than him, but he did not make a move. There must be a reason for this. He also noticed that a layer of the ground had been scraped off. The corner of his mouth could not help but twitch slightly, because he also thought that there might be something on the original ground. A king-level dragon vein was buried below. It was not difficult to imagine what could grow on it. It was definitely a rare treasure, but now it had obviously been scraped off by Yi Shiwen. Not even a blade of grass was left for him. Even the ground was scraped away. This 1-meter sky style made him feel like his liver and lungs were hurting. He couldn't wait to punch this guy who had a faint smile on his face to death. Even so, he quickly made a move to test the heavenly venerate above. Originally, he planned to take away the corpse of this heavenly venerate. However, the value of this heavenly venerate's corpse was slightly lower than that of the king-level dragon vein below, but it wasn't too far off. Moreover, it also contained the Heavenly Master's nomological laws, which could be said to be crucial for his future breakthrough. Having already reached this step, he had to prepare for his future breakthrough. However, the result gave him a toothache. Fortunately, he was not the slowest one. He could not help but heave a sigh of relief. The three of them each occupied a corner, vaguely forming a stalemate. The three of them stared at the suppressed king-level dragon vein on the ground, especially the Heaven Destruction Corpse Emperor, who was extremely shocked. If any one of these forgotten dragon veins appeared in the creation realm, it would definitely cause an endless storm. Even the legendary heavenly lords would fight for it. Fortunately, this was the path of creation. Otherwise, how could they have had the chance to obtain such treasures? The three of them waited for a while. More sovereign emperors flew in from the other passageways. They were all in a sorry state. Not every passageway led to this place. Some of the passageways led to a dead end. Moreover, even if they could reach this place, many of the passageways were filled with danger. Even with the cultivation of void emperors, they could not guarantee that they could pass through those places unscathed. Moreover, there were other emperor lords whose cultivation was much lower. There were originally dozens of emperor lords, but after passing through the stone statues and passing through the passages, only less than 50 people could reach this place. After these emperor lords arrived, they quickly discovered the heavenly lord in the sky and the king-level dragon vein on the ground. They immediately became excited. After testing that the heavenly lord corpse in the sky was not something they could touch, they all began to attack the formation above the king-level dragon vein on the ground. Boom! 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 With Yi Shiwen's strength, it was not something that could be done in a short period of time. However, the dozens of emperor lords had taken action one after another, and it only took a moment for the emperor lords to completely destroy the formation. Roar! A deafening roar could be heard as the Dragon King's pulse began to move. Chapter 3273. The huge king-level dragon's vein was originally suppressed, but now, these formations had been destroyed by many greedy rulers. Now, there was naturally no power that could suppress the remaining king-level dragon's vein. Roar! A loud roar came from this king-level dragon vein. With a terrifying might, it rose from the ground. Oh no! Many emperors felt that something was wrong. Although they had heard about king-level dragon veins, they had never seen one. Even though it was only an incomplete king-level dragon vein, it still had terrifying power. It was even more terrifying than the emperor's. Almost instantly, this dragon vein rose into the air. An emperor-level creature could not dodge at all. Its huge body was hit by the dragon's tail and flew out on the spot. Bang! The emperor-class creature only felt the pressure, and its entire body was about to collapse. Its heart was filled with shock, and it coughed up a mouthful of blood. It continuously retreated, escaping the attack range of the king-class dragon vein. This king-level dragon vein is so strong. Many emperors had sharp eyes. They could see how terrifying this dragon vein was at a glance. What was even more terrifying was that this dragon vein was in a damaged state. If it was at its peak, it would be even more terrifying than a peak emperor-level creature. It might even have the power of a heavenly master. Go capture it. Even if we can only get a part of it, it is still a great fortune. A emperor-level emperor roared. Obviously, he wanted to provoke others to attack together. However, in reality, there was no need for him to provoke them. Just the hope of obtaining a king-level dragon vein was enough to make these emperors, who usually did not show their emotions, go crazy. If Yi Shiwen had a king-level dragon vein by his side when he first became an emperor, his cultivation path would be smoother. Many places that needed to be dangerous would only need to be smooth and steady. Even now, this king-level dragon vein was still very important to him. When an emperor-level emperor attacked, even in a place where the laws were suppressed, it could still cause an earth-shattering effect. Not to mention dozens of emperors attacking together. The entire space was surging. However, every time it exceeded the limits of what the space could withstand, it would be suppressed. There was a law maintaining the entire space so that it would not collapse. Dozens of imperial emperors attacked with all their might, exploding with terrifying might that caused the entire world to tremble violently. All of their attacks landed on the king-level dragon vein. Furthermore, this king-grade dragon vein was clearly not something to be trifled with. It was surrounded by a profound law that involved the laws of the world. Even with the knowledge of the sovereign emperors, they could not see through it and understand it. With just a sweep of its dragon tail, it actually swept away all the attacks of the various sovereign emperors. Everyone, go all out. Otherwise, I'm afraid we won't be able to suppress this king-level dragon vein. The various sovereign emperors quickly made their move. This was not the time to decide the victor and fight for the king-grade dragon vein. Compared to the continuous attacks of the others, Yi Shiwen and the other two did not make a move. They just looked at each other indifferently and looked at each other from time to time. Obviously, they were afraid of each other, so they could not make a move immediately. Yi Shiwen glanced at the two of them, and realized what these two were planning. They were certainly planning to take advantage of the situation to catch the cicada, unaware of the oriole behind. So, it wouldn't be easy to stop them with everyone's strength. At that time, the victor would only be decided by the few of them. How could the others not understand? However, they knew that they had to make a move. Otherwise, there would be no chance at all. The various sovereign emperors were all shrewd people. Naturally, they understood what the others were thinking. The final victor would depend on their own strength. As for the Heavenly Master's corpse, no one had any thoughts about it, at least not for the time being. After all, it was too dangerous, and they had yet to think of a way to resist the counterattack of those laws. Since everyone has such thoughts, let me make a move first. Yi Shiwen naturally understood what everyone was thinking. Hence, he could not be bothered to wait and made a move directly. Swoosh! In the blink of an eye, Yi Shiwen had already flown above this king-level dragon vein. And this king-grade dragon vein had obviously sensed it. Among these people, only the man in front of it was the biggest threat to it. Almost at the same time, a huge dragon tail descended from the sky and slashed towards Yi Shiwen. At this time, it did not look like a dragon's tail at all, but a long saber. Under the control of a peerless saber user, it seemed to be able to split the world in half at any time and place. Bang! When this attack fell, Yi Shiwen only raised his hand to block it. The terrifying tail that could destroy the body of an emperor-grade creature was easily blocked by Yi Shiwen. Yi Shiwen's body swayed slightly with a strange rhythm, and this tyrannical power was completely broken. In terms of brute force, he was not inferior to anyone. Then, everyone looked at the scene in front of them with their mouths agape. They saw that Yi Shiwen not only blocked the terrifying attack of the dragon's tail, but also grabbed the entire dragon's tail in his hand. Then, he spun it in the sky. The entire huge king-grade dragon vein spun rapidly. An emperor-grade creature could not dodge in time and was swung on the spot. Then, he was instantly sent flying, and his body collapsed in an instant. Bone fragments flew everywhere. This is simply fake, this strange power. Many sovereign emperors felt their mouths twitch. This was the first time they really paid attention to Yi Shiwen's attack. How could they not be shocked? This martial emperor Yi Shiwen really lives up to his reputation. A sovereign emperor from the East region finally recognized the person in front of him. Why, do you know him? Is he very powerful? A sovereign emperor couldn't help but ask curiously. Logically, such a powerful sovereign emperor, there was no reason for them not to know anything about him. This was completely illogical. The newly risen sovereign emperor of the human race, martial emperor, was appointed as the Four Prefectures patrol envoy by the Fortune God dynasty. Recently, he has been in the limelight. The heaven-devouring demon clan's old ancestor was killed by him. Even so, the heaven-devouring demon emperor had no choice but to lower his head. Don't you think he is powerful? The sovereign emperor from the East region said. Originally, he really didn't know Yi Shiwen. However, after thinking about it carefully, many things were not difficult to guess. After all, Yi Shiwen had caused such a big commotion in the East region some time ago. Even if he hadn't seen Yi Shiwen in person, he had heard a little about him. Hearing those words, many people involuntarily sucked in a mouthful of cold air. The heaven-devouring monstrous clan's fame was not only limited to the eastern region. In the entire Fortune God dynasty, if one did not consider the 10 great clans, then the heaven-devouring monstrous clan would definitely be ranked at the top. The heaven-devouring demon clan's old ancestor, the heaven-devouring demon emperor, had already been famous in the world countless years ago. Now, he was forced to death and had to lower his head. Yi Shiwen was really terrifying. Oh, so he is that martial emperor. This person's reputation is not only in the East region. He is also famous in our Stormy Sea region. Senior Yi Huang has named him by name. He wants him to die a horrible death, along with the human race. At this moment, an emperor-level creature said sinisterly. He was the one who had been thrown by Yi Shiwen with the dragon vein. Now that his body had recovered, he couldn't help but sneer when he heard that the person was called Martial Emperor. At this moment, the crowd finally understood that Yi Shiwen had offended so many powerful existences. Yi Huang, the heaven-devouring demon emperor, any one of them could make the world tremble with a stomp of their feet. Even the heaven-exterminating corpse emperor and the void emperor couldn't help but be shocked when they heard the names of these two people. Given the strength of these two people, Yi Shiwen had offended them, but still hadn't died. This in itself explained a lot of problems. At this moment, Yi Shiwen had already thrown the king-level dragon vein to the ground. Boom! 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 This powerful king-level dragon vein had no time to react at all. It was continuously smashed on the ground by Yi Shiwen, and its entire huge dragon body seemed to be on the verge of collapse. This king-level dragon vein was very powerful, but unfortunately, it had encountered a humanoid monster who was even more powerful than it. Even if this king-level dragon vein was intelligent, it couldn't withstand such devastation. Moreover, it wasn't in its peak state in the first place. Soon, under Yi Shiwen's continuous attacks, it couldn't bear it anymore. Boom! This king-level dragon vein was once again smashed to the ground by Yi Shiwen's fist. Instantly, sand and stones flew, and the entire space trembled. This time, the king-level dragon vein struggled for a while, but it couldn't get up immediately. Everyone saw this opportunity. It's time to attack. Everyone attacked at this moment. Suddenly, dozens of big hands appeared in the sky, grabbing towards the king-level dragon vein that was struggling to get up. Yi Shiwen wouldn't let them be complacent. The reason why he took the trouble to attack personally was to seize the initiative. How could he let them succeed at this moment? Swoosh! A beam of sword light swept across the void like a huge beam of light, cutting the sky into two halves. The huge hands that were flying over were also chopped into pieces in an instant. Above the sky, there was a burst of colorful divine light. Seeing that their attacks were blocked by Yi Shiwen casually, everyone couldn't help but be furious. Martial Emperor, don't go too far. Do you want to take this king-level dragon vein for yourself? An emperor roared. If Yi Shiwen only took a part of it, it wouldn't be a big deal. A random dragon leg was equivalent to the wealth of a level 1 dragon vein, not to mention there was so much of it. However, Yi Shiwen actually wanted to take it for himself. This was something they couldn't tolerate. So what if I take it for myself? Chapter 3274. So what if I take it for myself? Yi Shiwen said indifferently in the face of the oncoming crowd. Everyone was stunned. They did not expect that Yi Shiwen would dare to challenge them. He was not even willing to cover it up. He was obviously looking down on them. How could these arrogant emperors not be enraged? If it was just one person, they might not dare to step forward due to Yi Shiwen's previous performance. However, with so many people, they became bolder. It seems that martial emperor is very confident. In that case, don't blame us for being immoral. The Heaven Destruction Corps Emperor stood up and said. He also realized that if he did not make a move now, it would not be his turn. The Void Emperor also stood up. Yi Shiwen wanted to take the king-level dragon vein for himself. He had completely crossed the line. Originally, the two of them thought that the most likely situation was that the three of them would join forces to divide the king-level dragon vein. However, it was obvious that Yi Shiwen planned to flip the table. He did not intend to share with them at all. In that case, there was no need to be polite. Immoral? Yi Shiwen sneered. He did not care about the hidden threat of the Heaven Destruction Corps Emperor. He was determined to win this battle. Once he got the king-level dragon vein, he would be able to reach the peak of the 9th realm in a short time. By then, he would only be one step away from the Heavenly Master realm. Therefore, he was forced into a corner. There was no way he could back down. All right, in that case, let's talk with strength. The Void Emperor stepped forward and said. His words were full of confidence. Although he was afraid of Yi Shiwen, he was not afraid. In an instant, everyone decided that they would decide their share with strength. Yi Shiwen laughed and said, Come on then. Let me see what you guys are capable of. Whoosh. As soon as Yi Shiwen finished speaking, a palm broke through everything, collapsed the void, and pressed down on Yi Shiwen's head. Who else could it be but the Heaven Exterminating Corps Emperor? There was a warm smile on his face. However, he had unleashed a terrifying killing move. It was extremely ruthless. He didn't give Yi Shiwen a chance to breathe. However, his attack speed was very fast. However, Yi Shiwen's counterattack was also very fast. He stretched out his hand and fiercely collided with the Heaven Extermination Corps Emperor. Boom! Both sides were experts of the Ninth Realm, so there was no need to say how terrifying their full power was. However, before this power could be released, it disappeared into the air, dissipated completely by the laws. Yi Shiwen's figure didn't waver, but the ground under his feet had collapsed and formed a big pit. It could be seen how terrifying the power of the Heaven Extermination Corps Emperor's palm was. But even so, it was useless against Yi Shiwen. The Heaven Exterminating Corps Emperor's figure kept tumbling in the sky, and was barely able to offset the countershock force brought by Yi Shiwen. There was a flash of horror in his eyes. This was the first time he had fought with Yi Shiwen. Although he knew that Yi Shiwen was extremely powerful and his body must be very strong, he was also very confident in himself, so he didn't think much of it. However, now that they had just fought, he found that he was wrong. The guy in front of him was not an ordinary person. Yi Shiwen's reaction was extremely fast. When he was about to pursue further, the Void Emperor beside him had already swept over. Everywhere his fist passed, everything turned into nothingness. It was extremely terrifying. It was a kind of law of nothingness. Yi Shiwen was not in a hurry. He just turned his palm into the seal of the Martial Emperor's seal and smashed it. Although the power of this law was extremely eager to turn Yi Shiwen's palm into nothingness, there was no way. Yi Shiwen's arm was like a sea-stabilizing divine needle. It firmly fixed the space, fixed everything, and made the Void Emperor's plan all go to waste. Bang! The Martial Emperor's seal and the Void Emperor's fist of nothingness collided, and a terrifying wind erupted. The Void Emperor was directly shaken back a few steps, but Yi Shiwen was like a nail. He was firmly nailed there, and didn't have the slightest intention of moving. Many sovereign emperors were startled halfway through their charge. Yi Shiwen's movements were too swift and fierce. He had consecutively repelled 2 sovereign emperors of the Ninth Realm, and yet he did not move at all. It was as if he had not been affected at all. However, there were still many people who rushed up. Competing in numbers? I'm not afraid. Yi Shiwen smiled faintly, and his body suddenly split into countless figures. It was the 3,000 martial arts. Although it was still a little difficult for him to deal with top masters like the Heaven Exterminating Emperor and the Void Emperor with the 3,000 martial arts that he had split into, it was more than enough to block those sovereign emperors. It was undoubtedly wishful thinking to rely on numbers to crush him. The others naturally didn't expect Yi Shiwen's counterattack to be so powerful. In just a moment, they were already surrounded by Yi Shiwen's 3,000 martial arts. Everyone had to face a large number of 3,000 martial art. 2 more hands grew out of Yi Shiwen's body, and he directly grabbed the king-level dragon vein. This level of Dharma idol magical power was just an insignificant skill for Yi Shiwen. This king-level dragon vein was still dizzily grabbed by Yi Shiwen's hands, and it was still trying to break free. However, it was useless. No matter how much its huge body struggled, it couldn't break free from Yi Shiwen's hands at all. It could only watch as Yi Shiwen grabbed it bit by bit and pulled it into his inner world. At this moment, the Heaven Exterminating Corps Emperor and the Void Emperor had already surrounded him from the left and right. As soon as the 2 came up, they used their invincible unique skills to stop Yi Shiwen. Ha ha, come on! Yi Shiwen used his great power to suppress the king-level dragon vein's resistance, and at the same time, rushed up to the 2 fearlessly. Bang! With a loud explosion, the 3 sides collided fiercely, like 3 huge stars colliding fiercely. Yi Shiwen blocked the Void Emperor with one palm, and then directly turned around and punched the Heaven Exterminating Corps Emperor. 6 paths of reincarnation fist. Send you to reincarnation. Yi Shiwen's fist technique formed a huge 6 paths of reincarnation in the sky, and the Heaven Exterminating Corps Emperor faintly felt a kind of suppression. The huge 6 paths of reincarnation actually had a kind of innate suppression on him. This was simply incredible. Although he was born as a corpse, he had already overcome all kinds of weaknesses in these years of cultivation, and it was impossible for him to be targeted like this. However, he still felt the suppression now, and suddenly, he had a bad feeling. Boom! He also punched out a corpse Tao world, trying to compete with Yi Shiwen's 6 paths of reincarnation, but it could not stop it at all. In just an instant, it was penetrated by Yi Shiwen's punch. The corpse Tao world that he released was only a moment's effort, and it was actually suppressed by Yi Shiwen's 6 paths of reincarnation. Immediately afterward, bursts of golden light burst out from Yi Shiwen's body. In the golden light, there seemed to be endless gods chanting the Eternal Heart Sutra, and the corpse Tao world was actually purified. How is this possible? This is a sutra that specializes in restraining the corpse Tao. The heaven-exterminating corpse emperor suddenly reacted, and immediately understood what this sutra was. He retreated again, and secretly cursed. Ordinary sutras that specialized in restraining the corpse Tao did not work on him at all, because he had long left that level. However, he could not resist Yi Shiwen's strength, which was too strong, and he was forcibly suppressing him with his own strength. Want to leave? It's too late. Yi Shiwen shouted, and a cage appeared behind the heaven-exterminating corpse emperor, and he was instantly imprisoned in it. It was a cage of the law that condensed out of thin air, and naturally, it could not keep the heaven-exterminating corpse emperor for too long. It was only for a moment, but even this moment was enough for Yi Shiwen. Purify for me! Yi Shiwen blasted out a punch, and on his fist, there were some looming sutras. Every word of these sutras was restraining the corpse Tao, and they were all the most bright and majestic power that could restrain them. Bang! The heaven-exterminating corpse emperor had no time to resist, and his fist was penetrated by Yi Shiwen. His physical body was also very strong, and the body of the corpse Tao martial artist was one of the most powerful physical bodies in the world. But now in front of Yi Shiwen, it was simply like a piece of paper, and was penetrated by a punch. Roar! The heaven-exterminating corpse emperor was seriously injured by Yi Shiwen's punch, and he could not help but roar in pain. He hurriedly retreated, and broke free from the cage formed by the law of heaven and earth. He no longer looked like the sun, and his face had already changed into a green face with fangs, revealing his true appearance. Corpse Chi soared into the sky. This was because his disguise was broken by Yi Shiwen's punch. All of this took a long time to describe, but in fact it only happened in a short moment. The Void Emperor only felt that he was pushed back by Yi Shiwen's palm, and before he could attack again, the heaven-exterminating corpse emperor was seriously injured. His entire chest was penetrated, and the wound seemed to be burning, emitting green smoke. He could only scream in pain, and his whole body was spasming. Meeting Yi Shiwen, the heaven-exterminating corpse emperor could be considered to have met his natural enemy, and in an instant, he had already withdrawn from the ranks of competing for the king-level dragon vein. He had only flown halfway when he saw Yi Shiwen had already rushed over. After defeating the heaven-exterminating corpse emperor, Yi Shiwen's reaction was even faster, and the time robe appeared on his body, and his fist went straight for the Void Emperor's face. In an instant, the offensive and defensive situation changed, and in an instant, Yi Shiwen became the one attacking, and in an instant, he took the initiative. The Void Emperor could only change from attacking to defending, and then forcibly took Yi Shiwen's punch. He only felt that his arms were numb, and he kept retreating, but there was no way to dissipate this huge force. And at this moment, he saw that the king-level dragon vein had already been captured by Yi Shiwen and absorbed into his body. Chapter 3275. Yi Shiwen single-handedly fought against dozens of emperors and took the king-level dragon vein in front of everyone's eyes. In just a short period of time, everything had changed. Yi Shiwen didn't even move, but he managed to resist everyone's joint attack. This skill made many sovereign emperors tremble in fear. It was not scary that Yi Shiwen could block everyone for a while. What was scary was that when he withstood the joint attack of the Heaven Destruction Corps King and Void Emperor, he did not even move. Obviously, his skill was above the two. The Void Emperor's eyes flashed with an inexplicable coldness. He believed that he was the strongest among the three of them. After all, he was already close to that legendary realm, the one and only ruler of heaven and earth. However, he suffered a loss in the hands of Yi Shiwen in the real fight. The Heaven Extermination Corps Emperor was even more miserable. He was directly restrained. His chest was pierced by Yi Shiwen's fist, and he was seriously injured. In comparison, the Heaven Extermination Corps Emperor was in a better state. However, even so, the biggest harvest of this trip was gone. Forget about the treasures from before. Even this king-level dragon vein was taken by Yi Shiwen. How could he be willing to give up? On the other side, the Heaven Destruction Corps King finally recovered from his injuries. He looked at Yi Shiwen with fear in his eyes. That scripture that could restrain his great path made him not have the slightest advantage when facing Yi Shiwen. On the contrary, he was at a disadvantage. He was completely suppressed. In addition, Yi Shiwen's skill was actually above him. This was simply an incredible miracle. Logically speaking, Yi Shiwen, a newly ascended emperor who had just become famous, should not be able to challenge a veteran emperor like him. Although he had not entered the peak of the ninth realm, he was far more powerful than ordinary people could understand. In the end, he was still completely suppressed. This was simply impossible. If he had not seen it with his own eyes today, he would not have believed it just by hearing about it. A battle between imperial monarchs was largely determined by the gap in cultivation, and the gap in cultivation was accumulated over a long period of time. This was also the reason why it was very difficult for new imperial monarchs to challenge veteran imperial monarchs. Just the accumulation of countless years was a gap that ordinary people couldn't overcome. Everyone was shocked by Yi Shiwen's strength. Even if they hated him, no one dared to make a move. Are there any other fellow Taoists who wish to participate? If not, then this king-level dragon vein will belong to me, Yi Shiwen calmly said. Previously, he would rather make the first move than wait for the mantis to stalk the cicada. This was the reason why he would rather make the first move than wait for the mantis to stalk the cicada. If he waited for everyone to tire out the king-level dragon's vein before making his move, it was not that he would not be able to obtain it. It was just that he would have to put in more effort to snatch the king-level dragon's vein from the heaven-destroying corpse king and the Void Emperor. At that time, who knew what kind of changes would occur? Good. Taoist Martial Emperor, you're really good. However, aren't you afraid of bursting at the seizing of the king-level dragon vein? The heaven-exterminating corpse king said coldly. He was no longer as sunny as he was when they first met. You don't have to worry about me even if I'm full, Yi Shiwen said faintly. He could naturally hear the threat in the heaven-exterminating corpse king's word. They were not the only ones who were interested in the king-level dragon vein. As long as they spread the news, a large number of people would come looking for trouble with Yi Shiwen. Even top experts like the Battle Emperor and the Night Emperor would find it difficult to keep their hearts. They would come to snatch it. At that time, the real trouble would begin. However, Yi Shiwen was naturally confident. With his cultivation and the universe creation palm, although he was not invincible, he was not afraid of water at all. As long as it was not a celestial master, no one would dare to show off in front of him. The other Emperor Lords also looked at each other. It was a pity that no one took the lead. They also did not dare to make a move. The Void Emperor and the Heaven Exterminating Corpse King were both afraid and seriously injured. Seeing that no one continued to come up, Yi Shiwen simply sat down cross-legged and meditated. He did not care about the others at all. When the Emperor Lords saw this scene, they could not help but gnash their teeth in hatred. From the beginning, Yi Shiwen did not care about them and only treated them as ordinary people. However, they could not lose their temper. When the news spreads, you will suffer. Even a celestial master would be tempted by a king-level dragon vein. You are dead. Many Emperor Lords silently cursed Yi Shiwen in their hearts. They could not wait for him to die immediately. Yi Shiwen did not care about what these people thought. He only cared about meditating and looking at the king-level dragon vein. Compared to a level 2 dragon vein, the king-level dragon vein definitely did not just contain more spiritual energy. For example, the amount of spiritual energy that Yi Shiwen could extract from the dragon vein for cultivation was completely different at every moment. If the spiritual energy extracted from a level 2 dragon vein was like a light drizzle, then the spiritual energy extracted from a king-level dragon vein was like a heavy rain. In other words, Yi Shiwen's cultivation speed could increase by several times in the same amount of time. If it was a complete king-level dragon vein, it would be even more incredible. The increase in speed was not something that the incomplete king-level dragon vein could compare to. Although the speed of absorbing spiritual energy could not be compared to the speed of cultivation, in addition to absorbing spiritual energy and transforming it into skills, one also needed to comprehend the Great Way in order to improve one's cultivation level step by step. However, the effect of this improvement could not be underestimated. However, Yi Shiwen could use the mysterious space to analyze the mysteries of the heavenly way for him. Hence, it could be said that the speed of his analysis depended on the amount of spiritual energy he could extract. For others, the king-level dragon vein could increase the cultivation effect by 1, but for him, it would increase the cultivation effect by 10. It was incomparable. With this king-level dragon vein in hand, he truly had the hope and confidence to reach the Heavenly Lord realm before the heaven-devouring Demon King. After all, the heaven-devouring Demon King had been in seclusion for many years, while he was still desperately cultivating to reach the peak of the 9th realm. The gap between them was too big from the start. Otherwise, why would Yi Shiwen need to cultivate so crazily? However, after many tests, Yi Shiwen was already confident that as long as he was given some time to cultivate, breaking through to the peak of the 9th realm would be a matter of time. By then, even if he was chased by experts like the Battle Emperor, he had nothing to worry about. When everyone saw that it was impossible to snatch the king-level dragon vein from Yi Shiwen, at least for the time being, everyone's attention was on the mysterious Heavenly Lord's corpse floating above their heads. Although some people had tried it just now and it was extremely miserable, with some people's bodies almost being twisted into pieces, it was undeniable that this body had great value. At least, they had not heard of anyone possessing the body of a Heavenly Lord. Moreover, the strength of a Heavenly Lord was probably very powerful among the Heavenly Lords. Otherwise, it would be impossible for him to have a king-level dragon vein. Once they obtained it, its value would not be lower than that of the incomplete king-level dragon vein. Soon, the heaven-destroying Corpse Emperor and the Void Emperor, who had finished recuperating, began to attack. The other emperors also began to test the defense laws of the Heavenly Lord. At the same time, they secretly glanced at Yi Shiwen and gritted their teeth in hatred. However, seeing that he had no intention of attacking, they could not help but breathe a sigh of relief. If Yi Shiwen intervened, then with his strength, it was very likely that he would snatch the body of the Heavenly Lord along with it. Then, they would really lose everything. Many experts teamed up to test, but the effect was not as effective as everyone thought. It was as if there was a layer between them. Even if they attacked, it was difficult for them to shake the defense system of the Heavenly Lord with their strength. This was like letting a quasi-emperor attack them casually. Even if they stood still, the quasi-emperor would not be able to cut them. This discovery made everyone even more depressed. It made them even more envious of Yi Shiwen, who had monopolized the king-level dragon vein. If everyone had a share, then it would be fine. However, in the end, Yi Shiwen monopolized it all. How could they not be furious? Just as they were about to take a step further and take out their ultimate techniques, the entire space suddenly started to shake violently, as if it was a sign of the end of the world. An extremely dangerous aura was also released from the Heavenly Venerate's corpse. Oh no, damn it! That king-level dragon vein was used to suppress the corpse of the Heavenly Lord. Now that the king-level dragon vein has been taken away by a martial emperor, I'm afraid the corpse of the Heavenly Lord is going to make a move. Some emperors were knowledgeable and immediately guessed the reason. Instantly, the other emperors looked at each other and felt extreme danger. Although many people knew that the Heavenly Lord in front of them was already dead, it did not mean that the dead Heavenly Lord would not be dangerous. If they were dead and a group of quasi-emperors came to rob the tomb, they were confident that they would leave some tricks to kill them. A dangerous aura filled the air. Both the Heaven Extermination Corpse Emperor and the Void Emperor quickly flew towards the entrance of the passageway. However, they discovered that Yi Shiwen had already flown into the passageway at some point in time. Obviously, he had seen the danger ahead of time and had hurriedly retreated. However, they were still stuck here. The two of them looked at each other and hurriedly followed. Soon, the other emperors also followed. Soon, a terrifying aura swept out from behind them. The entire space turned into atoms at an astonishing speed and collapsed inch by inch. This terrifying aura directly chased after everyone, as if some ferocious beast had awakened. Yi Shiwen took the lead and flew all the way out of the door. The sky outside was clear and the air was fresh. The creation storm had already passed for a long time. Chapter 3276. An explosive piece of news spread throughout the path of creation. Someone had discovered the whereabouts of a king-level dragon vein. Although it was only a broken king-level dragon vein, it was already attractive enough for many emperors. Even a level 1 dragon vein was enough to trigger an unprecedented battle between emperors, let alone a king-level dragon vein. It was a legendary dragon vein that even ordinary heavenly venerables could not possess. Because of this king-level dragon vein, the entire path of creation had been stirred up. Although many people had discovered many treasures left behind by predecessors along the way, none of them had such a great harvest. Therefore, one person's name was pushed to the forefront. That was Martial Emperor Yi Shiwen. As this matter fermented, this name gradually became known to all the emperors, especially the things he had done, which were spread far and wide in an instant. In particular, Yi Huang had also come to the path of creation this time. Therefore, he became the target of many people's attention at the same time. Yi Huang did not disappoint them. He even made a bold declaration that anyone who provided Yi Shiwen's location and confirmed it would be able to obtain a level 2 dragon vein. He had merely provided information, but he had already received such a great reward. One could imagine how excited the entire path of creation was because of Yi Huang's declaration. However, Yi Huang was not the only one who had started to get restless. Apart from Yi Huang, many top emperors had also joined the ranks to hunt down Yi Shiwen. The effect of a king-level dragon vein was not as obvious to them as it was to Yi Shiwen. Even so, it was enough to increase their chances of breaking through to the Heavenly Venerable's realm. In just over a year, many emperors had joined the ranks to hunt down Yi Shiwen, whether openly or secretly. There were already 20 battles that were well known. In the beginning, those ordinary emperors still dared to find trouble with Yi Shiwen. In the end, they were all killed by Yi Shiwen. However, gradually, these emperors began to appear in groups. In order to obtain the king-level dragon vein, These emperors who had always acted alone began to join forces. This was because if they did not practice, they would not be able to deal with Yi Shiwen and would only be killed by him. Yi Shiwen had already killed more than 10 emperors because of their carelessness at the beginning. This man was cruel and merciless. His methods were extremely ruthless. He didn't care what kind of background these emperors had, whether they were from a super sect or a terrifying race in the outer domain. Anyone who interfered with him and attacked him would find it difficult to escape death in the end. He had chased them for tens of millions of miles and finally hacked them to death. But in the end, Yi Shiwen didn't have the upper hand at all. There were even a few top-notch sovereign emperors who joined forces to attack Yi Shiwen. Yi Shiwen could only fight against one of them alone. But when the number of sovereign emperors increased to so many, he was suddenly helpless. In the beginning, Yi Shiwen was able to escape unscathed in the face of the joint encirclement of 2 or 3 peak sovereign emperors. However, Yi Shiwen gradually began to suffer injuries when Yi Huang and the others joined the encirclement later on. Especially Yi Huang. Out of the 20 known encirclements, 10 of them were organized by Yi Huang. There were also several other terrifying powerhouses who accompanied him. All of them were outstanding figures among the foreign emperor-level creatures. None of them was inferior to Yi Huang. In fact, some old antiques were even more terrifying than Yi Huang. Under such circumstances, Yi Shiwen finally could not hold on any longer. In the most recent known battle, Yi Shiwen was used by Yi Huang using a technique left behind by a heavenly lord in the outer domain. Yi Shiwen was severely injured and almost escaped from death. Yi Shiwen's severe injuries made many emperors restless. If Yi Shiwen was in good condition, they might not dare to attack. However, if Yi Shiwen was severely injured, they might have a chance to succeed. Once they obtained the king-level dragon vein, their future would be limitless. Faced with the situation where all the emperors began to attack Yi Shiwen crazily, even Yi Shiwen's few friends and allies were at their wits' end. Even if the Battle Emperor and the others wanted to help Yi Shiwen, they could not stop the greed of so many people. Moreover, they were also very tempted. They were already treating Yi Shiwen well by not attacking. The king-level dragon vein was different from the level 1 dragon vein. Moreover, the relationship between the Battle Emperor and the others was not that good. Just as everyone was in a frenzy, in a corner of the path of creation, a figure was sitting cross-legged in the sky. His body was emitting bursts of light, forcibly isolating the space, isolating a small space. Yi Shiwen opened his inner world with great difficulty. Originally, with his skills, opening an inner world was comparable to a super-large world. However, now, he could only open a small space with a radius of 12 meters at most. In this place, the spatial laws that he was familiar with were suppressed too much. At the same time, there were many different spatial laws at work. His body was full of injuries that could not be healed. These were the injuries that Yi Huang had previously used a Heavenly Lord's technique to severely injure him. With Yi Huang's strength, even a few other tyrannical emperors could not injure him to this extent, to the point where he was on the verge of death. Yi Shiwen had used a Heavenly Lord's seal that he had never thought of. Yi Shiwen had taken advantage of Yi Shiwen's unguarded moment to launch a sneak attack. Damned Yi Huang, sooner or later, I'll return all of this to you, Yi Shiwen growled in a low voice. With his recovery ability, ordinary injuries could be completely healed in just a moment. However, it was not so easy to heal a Heavenly Lord's injuries. Among the emperors who were hunting Yi Shiwen, Yi Huang was the most proactive. He had participated in more than half of the hunt for Yi Shiwen. It was as if he did not do anything else other than constantly targeting Yi Shiwen. If an expert like Yi Huang had not taken action, ordinary peak emperors would not have been able to pose any threat to him. What he needed to do now was to advance to the peak of the 9th realm as soon as possible. When that time came, he would be able to kill Yi Huang. After opening up his inner world and hiding in midair, Yi Shiwen began to frantically circulate his magic power. Behind him, a phoenix was constantly crying out. The injuries on Yi Shiwen's body finally began to gradually recover under the guidance of this phoenix. After a long time, these injuries finally healed, and the remaining attacks in his body finally dissipated completely. After recovering from his injuries, Yi Shiwen did not stop his closed-door training. On the contrary, he continued his closed-door training. In the General Assembly, within his body, the king-level dragon vein was constantly extracting spiritual energy and pouring it into the mysterious space. The amount of spiritual energy being extracted was many times that of the level 2 dragon vein. This allowed Yi Shiwen's understanding of the Great Way to constantly improve with the burning of the dragon vein. This understanding was gradually transformed into Yi Shiwen's own strength. In front of Yi Shiwen, the heaven-devouring blood pill was also constantly rotating, constantly peeling off strands of medicinal energy and pouring it into Yi Shiwen's body. This allowed Yi Shiwen's skills to continuously improve along with his own understanding. Just a little bit more. I'll break through in one go. For Yi Shiwen, being hunted for more than a year was not without any benefit. At least, his potential had been completely forced out. In the many battles of life and death, Yi Shiwen's understanding of the Great Way had also improved at an astonishing rate. Originally, he had just broken through to the 9th realm. Now, not only had he completely stabilized his cultivation of the 9th realm, but he had also gone one step further and was infinitely close to the peak of the 9th realm. Originally, Yi Shiwen estimated that it might have taken him hundreds or even thousands of years to achieve this. Now, with the help of the king-level dragon vein, he had achieved this in just over a year. The amount of time saved in the process was immeasurable. Yi Shiwen's aura was constantly accumulating power and constantly rising. It was like a monstrous flood that was about to forcefully break through the foundations of his cultivation. When Yi Shiwen opened his eyes again, it was already 3 years later. In these 3 years, Yi Shiwen had concentrated on his cultivation and paid no attention to the outside world. He did not care about what happened to the others on the path of creation at all. His continuous cultivation finally allowed him to smoothly break through to the peak of the 9th realm. There was no earth-shattering breakthrough of a great realm. It was only a smooth and natural breakthrough. Around his body, the aura had completely converged into his body. There was no longer any trace of sluggishness. Everything was so smooth and natural. I've finally entered the peak of the 9th realm. Now I can also feel the barrier of the heavenly master realm. After entering the peak of the 9th realm, he could already feel the improvement of his strength. Compared to before, he was simply an existence of a different realm. Moreover, he could also feel that the barrier of the heavenly master realm was incomparably firm. When Yi Shiwen broke through to the 9th realm, he also tried to break through it. However, there was no way at all. Not even a crack existed. There were still many things he had to do to break through to the heavenly master realm. However, although he could not break through to the heavenly master realm, it was enough for him to do a lot of things. It was time to repay the blood debts that some people owed. During this period, not only was Yi Shiwen being hunted, but even Alchemy Emperor, who had come with Yi Shiwen, was also hunted several times. He was surrounded by danger and barely escaped. Apart from Yi Huang, who would be so bored as to hunt down Alchemy Emperor who did not have a king-level dragon vein. All of this was recorded in Yi Shiwen's mind. Previously, he did not have the time to find trouble with Alchemy Emperor. Now it was time to exchange everything back. No one can escape. You're tuning in to the Phoenix Knights YouTube channel. Don't forget to subscribe and join us on this journey to catch the most captivating stories.